Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, they're out in the entranceway. If y'all would like to come in, we have 6 seats available here in the jury box. But you just don't get the judges.
I never sit in there though.
Thank you. All right, the next one, Miss Dancy.
I can't see between my glasses. I'm Pam Dancy, Front Street. And I'd like to start out by letting council and Mayor Bass know that by no means am I implying any wrongs or doings by any contractors, vendors, or paid entities by the city. And there has been a lot of speculation on the streets over the years, and I would like to cut the grapevine to end it. So that, because this is my city as well as everybody else that's behind me. And I know that people are gonna shoot me down from the back when I start this, but this is not to condemn a soul, this is just to where we can get clean the garden and let's start over. That's all it is. So, with that being said, many questions that are unsure and regarding some practices on the past created agreements have been handled and expedited in connection with the local company named Brastex Development. In this development, 16 homes were supposed to be built on South Front Street. That hasn't been done. To this date, only 14 homes were built. The homes were to be built starting at 201 Front Street, and I'd like to know where 201 Front Street is, because as far as I know, there's not a 201 Front Street, but that is what's written on the contracts. A subdivision also was supposed to be named Bridge Point, was supposed to be established, that wasn't done.
Please, in the audience.
Now, look,
Hold on one second, just address us, please. Audience?
look,
Hold on,
I'm
wait,
not
wait,
here,
wait,
Bill,
one
so I'm
second.
gonna get mad,
Wait,
but
one
I'm
second.
not here.
Miss Nancy, please hold on a second, let me finish. Let me address the audience.
May I go on?
Yes, in just a second, so I address the audience. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, please, do your best to restrain yourself. I know emotions may be high or they may be low, but regardless, we're gonna have order and we're gonna follow process. If we can't do this, I will have to take other actions that I do not want to do. So let's do this correctly.
And I'm not.
Now you may finish.
Yes, sir, and I'm not trying to attack anybody, because I like everybody in this room and respect them. A spreadsheet from Braxton reflected what appeared to be a worksheet, a bulk estimate without any supporting bids or breakdowns on it that is turned into the city. I do not see any backup on that spreadsheet. Bridgepoint 380 requests. Questions arise on how many homes were supposed to be built. I mean, I know how many homes were supposed to be built. Where exactly is 201 Front Street? What happened to Bridgepoint Development? And I also want to know, Veola, if I'm probably not saying it correctly, did, the contractor turned in a typed receipt saying that the sewer and water cost them $21,000 when the water department came back and said, no, it cost $70,000. So there's a difference there as well. I'd like to know where that money is, or what, did it get written off, or what? Where is that money? I'd also like to know, about the permits. Also, there's a letter here stating from Jeff Pines that, there's an error in the agreement. I've been over all the agreements. I might not be the smartest apple in the room,
Please address us.
but I am not being ugly. I'm just reading the facts that I see on these papers, Mr. Mayor. And, it also says that there was an issue to Troy Grimmage and his waterfront development. His payment was supposed to be dispensed as value. Anyway, I have all this, and I'd like to know,
Mrs. Dancy, your 4 minutes are up.
yes,
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
I will come back, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have, David Estradio. Y'all,
She's telling me to get out of her face. Do
Yeah.
not speak to me.
Mrs.
like this.
Dancy.
I am not here to attack her son or your
Captain
face.
Gilchrist,
I'm after
come up here and
facts.
talk to them both, please. Mr. Estradio, would you please wait a second? Is it diffused? This is what I'm talking about, folks.
Oh, what about Paul?
All right.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful either.
You know, I'm not responding to anybody, but I'm saying, it's stuff like this, folks, that will, continue to hold us back. Mr. Estradio, Mr. Floor, sir.
I am David Stroh, owner of Stroh Automotive. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the Freeport City Council.
Thank you.
I am guilty of not attending city council meetings on a regular basis. Why? I feel that whenever we elect, we look out for our well-being. Instead, we have an administration that is running roughshod over us, treating the city as if it were their private domain, and enacting rules, regulations, laws to fit their personal wants, not their needs, but their wants. The Port Administration is not opposing those abusive moves, and by their silence, they are condoning what they were doing. The city of Freeport historically funneled the blacks, the Mexicans into the east side, until the Port of Freeport wanted that land. Then the city forced a mass exodus out of the east end. The city drove out intermedics, the city drove out the bike rally out of the east end also. Now, with these oppressive ordinances, they want to drive out the auto repair industry out of Freeport. How much abuse will Union Pacific take before they decide to get out of Freeport? When you build in a neighborhood, consider the neighborhood you are building in. If you do not like the neighborhood, then you shouldn't have built there, or shouldn't be building there. Do not get rid of the neighborhood, because now you feel like it's your neighborhood. Citizens of Freeport, let me listen to what this administration is doing to our great city of Freeport, because they'll be coming after you next. If you want a chemo, then get the hell out of Dodge and move to chemo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kenneth Hayes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll address my talk to you since I'll try to get you. Last couple of weeks, council members have put a lot of pictures on Facebook about bulk trash. And I've looked at all these, and I can look at the pictures and see why the stuff hasn't been picked up, and I can see why it's not going to be picked up. And I wish the council members putting these pictures on would take the time to go talk to these people and let them know. Now, Mr. Pearson and I are gonna start our own little group for our Ward C. And we're gonna pick up this bulk trash and let those people know it's not gonna be done anymore. But I personally have never had any trouble with the new trash people. They picked up bundles of sticks, they picked up bags, and my place is always clean. And I think anybody that follows the rules will see that's what it's gonna be. I want it to be known, you can look at these pictures and see why it's not being picked up.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pearson, you're up next, sir.
Tom Pearson, 110 South Front. I just wanted to bring up some things about the EDC expenditures on the riverfront. I was looking over at the electrical poles and the platform, and maybe they can answer this in work session, I don't know. What's the purpose of this electrical system and the platform? Were there any permits issued before they was put in? Were there any construction plans? Are the engineers, electrical and construction engineers, are they permitted with the city of Freeport? I see where the city waives the permit And, then Taylor, the construction people, charged $110 for permits. Who approves the payment for these expenditures? The citizens of Freeport would probably like to know where their money's going, because it's a terrible high cost for what I've got these invoices for. So maybe they'll answer that in work session. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Ladies and gentlemen that are in the back, if y'all would like to come up, there is open seating up here in the jury box. We have 3 more seats. Or if some gentleman wants to get up and let a lady sit, that would be okay in my book too. All right, next we have Aaron and Lucy Ware.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're here again today, about the 2 Front Street, to make another offer to you for that levy. We want to offer you $11,000 for that levy, which is extremely fair to the city, because no one has came close to offering $11,000 for that levy. We have no documentation, TMP shows anything, nobody shows anything where anybody offered $11,000 to the levy, which is only accessible to us. So that's all we want to say.
Thank y'all. The rest of them, ladies and gentlemen, are tied to, Miss Sabrina Brimage. The rest of them that I have in front of me are tied to specific items, numbers on the agenda, and we will address those accordingly.
Good evening, Council. I'm Sabrina Brimage. I live at 24 Fisher.
Hold on one second. What?
Mine wasn't.
Okay, I may not have seen that. Do we have another?
Yes.
I've got Nicole, George, yours has, got 4 items you're on.
Plus I want to make a comment.
Okay. All right, let me make sure I got that. All right, and I'm sorry, Manning, I don't see yours, sir.
That's sitting right over there.
Anybody have Manning's? Does anybody see that?
Oh.
Thank you for holding. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Brimage.
Good evening, Council. I'm Sabrina Brimage. I live at 24 Fisher. I would like, there was 2 investigations that an outside attorney was hired for to do at the first of this year. And to my knowledge, which it involves myself, nothing has been done with it. And I just would like to see these investigations done. You know, obviously we have nothing to hide or be ashamed of. But I think there's lots of things that we could be discussing about this city as far as community centers, good things, parks, whatever it may be for the city, but we're spending every council meeting discussing investigations and matters like that, when things could be done in a lot positive way. And I would like to see the investigations to be done and over with at this point.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Rolerson?
Which one? Which one? You in your back there too.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I come today, Chief came by and brought me the papers of the officers on my open records request. There's like 4 more officers that are not on there, but I have them anyway, because I got them in the 90s anyway. So basically, there's a cover-up going on. I'm letting you know that right now, Mr. Mayor. Because on Monday, when I talked and found out that it was released, I found out it was released, I didn't get it till the day. That's the following week. And it has been 28 days since I got an open records request. Now, my second open records request deals with the Enforcement Act. That the record request is based on that April boat rally that was held here in the city of Freeport. Okay? I'm waiting on the answer from the city. How the city gonna send me an open records request saying, we didn't know nothing about it. The police didn't do no security. September 11, we was attacked. We have a petrochemical place back over there called Brown Mouse, is a strategic preserve. We had a guy one time with a camera standing on the side of the road shooting pictures. He was arrested, okay? So if we under what happened September 11, and we have 13 petrochemical plants around us, and LNG, and all the boats came in this river, and the Coast Guard said they didn't know nothing about it either. So I asked for the Coast Guard command to give me an explanation. That's an open records request. I want the feds to look into everything that's going into Freeport for the simple fact, y'all on social media acting like children. One got a temper tantrum, the other one wanted transparency, and it all turned out that everybody in Brazoria County looking at this council. I sat up there and watched the EDC perfection. But the council meetings, oh my God. It's sad what Freeport going through. And it's sad that people, grown folks having temper tantrums that's supposed to be leading the city. It has to stop. This tit for tat stuff, it ain't doing nothing but hurt the citizens. And we have one leader that's elected to make sure the citizens are protected, that's you. And if you can't control them, then you need to find a state or somebody to make these boys act right. Because they are acting bad. And it's sad.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Madam Morris? Pardon me? I do not. Not that I see. Better than anymore?
Ms. Oldham, Curtis, raised hand behind me.
And there's one over there too? Okay, excuse me one second. Procedure is, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to speak on citizen comments, I encourage you. But you come up here and fill out a form with the information on it, and then bring that up to Betty Wells, our city secretary. Ooh, I don't.
No, it says she turned it in.
I don't see. Oh. You're right. Melanie, you did. I apologize. So, but do you want to talk about? Yep, there you go. In the public meeting period and beginning of the meeting. Maybe I ought to read this better. Mr. Morris, it's all yours, sir. Mr. Madam Morris, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is George Matt Morris. I reside at 1722 North Avenue Road. I'm worried about the direction and spending of the EDC. I believe there are two board members running the EDC, and those two board members have have their own interests at heart and not the Economic Development Corporation. They have proved that with their actions in last week's meeting. They did not allow any questions on some very questionable spending for emergency issues at the fish market property. Mingo made a comment that they were the board and the citizens were not, so we couldn't make a comment on those during that meeting. They didn't even allow the city manager to make a comment. He came to the podium twice to make a comment, and they wouldn't even take his questions. The people on the board, there's only one person who, in my opinion, has a really good construction knowledge, and they didn't allow him to make a complete statement. With a project that they spent over $6,000 on electrical poles. The poles themselves were 3 times the original cost at McCoy's that the city EDC paid. When a normal markup is 10 to 20% from a contractor. Please look into that invoice and let's question those irregularities in it. The project price was outrageous because Jeff said he could not get any other company to give a quote for the work. He said he contacted several companies, but did not get proof of which companies he contacted. I wanted to ask questions during that. 2 questions. 1, did you ask any other board member to assist in obtaining quotes? And if the answer was no, then why not? I believe the work project was given to that company, which by doing a simple internet LLC search, is a web design firm out of Angleton, not an electrical construction company. I believe it's time for council to act and remove Mingo and Jeff from the board for failing to protect the citizens of Freeport with gross misconduct and misuse of taxpayer funds. If this was a city employee who performed these actions, they would be relieved of their duties immediately, and criminal charges would be looked into. It is time to remove them from the board so they do not do more harm to the city's economic development corporation. I do not want Jeff Pines, Pena to become the next Jeff Pines for the city of Freeport with potential kickbacks from padded invoices from vendors. I also believe there are some good members on the EDC board who are trying to make Freeport a place for businesses to thrive, but are being stymied by those two members. Please allow them to grow with the removal of them too. One other note, I'd like for Jeff to stop the negative social media posts on our city employees. I believe he's doing a wacky dog type social media campaign criticizing our city staff to draw attention away from the negative, from the investigation within this property acquisition and the questionable spending within the EDC. It's not fair to our city employees who are being harassed by a city councilman. I have not seen any other council members here nor surrounding cities take the same approach. It's showing the lack of character with this wag the dog social media campaign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The next, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on. The next is, Mr. Tidwell.
No, y'all aren't good friends. Don't ever speak about my father again.
Hold on, folks. Captain or Chief, gonna rely upon y'all heavily tonight, looks like.
So I am Shauna Tidwell. I am the office manager for Queens Electric, electrical company here in Freeport. We've been in business for over 40 years, and we've always had a really good relationship with the city of Freeport. So why we're here today, basically, is the work that was done that the EDC was talking about, that everybody's been talking about the docks. We went out there first and foremost because we were included in some invoices that had nothing to do with us. But when we went out there to inspect the work, to kind of look at it on our own, there was so much stuff that wasn't done properly. And the thing about it is, if we as an electrical company are held to standards and codes, why in the world wouldn't you as well be held to those same standards and codes? It just, I don't know, there are 2 service poles at the dock. The ground wires are not encased in protective conduit. I'm to assume that the ground rods that should be 8 foot in the ground are not, due to the fact that the contractor listed on the invoice that they couldn't even get the service pole 4 foot in the ground due to concrete obstructions. Furthermore, the ground rods are not copper clad and not properly sized. The cost of the material for this job, just so you know, normally electrical contractors mark up about 30%. So that's what it is. This was ridiculous. The markup on materials on this job was just astronomical. We priced it on our materials list for $1,781. You guys were charged more than $4,910 for the same materials. And here's the thing, guys. We're actually questioned on our invoices. We're questioned on our materials, and we have to prove everything. So why is it somebody else can come in here and do shoddy work for nothing? And get paid for it. We have a good relationship. I wrote all this stuff down here at the EDC meeting last week. We weren't allowed to talk. Jeff talked about comparing apples to apples. The rate for labor that they charged was $225. He pointed out it was for 2-man crews, so it came out to $112.50. And he said, as a matter of fact,
Kenny's Electric charges $120 an hour. We sure do. $120 an hour for 2 licensed electricians, which comes out to $60 per man, not $112.50. So, you tell me comparing apples to apples. Anyhow, moving on, like I said, we've done business here for 40 years. Every time a new administration comes in here, we actually have to prove ourselves again and again. Our guys come out on a holiday in the middle of the night, in the morning, during hurricanes. They are not allowed to evacuate. They come and they help. But we're still questioning, you know what, that's okay. It's our job to prove ourselves to you guys. But everybody else should as well. Everybody else should as well. I wrote on here some of the invoices. The reason we don't like to do work or bids for the EDC is because they don't pay. They do eventually. It took 7 months for me to recruit 3 different invoices. 7 months. And I talked to everybody. I even talked to Jeff. And there was no problem with the invoices I asked. It was just they weren't being paid. Finally, Mr. Holman called me into his office and wrote a check. Finally, after 7 months. Our time wasn't valued. We would be told it was an emergency to show up at meetings. My guy would show up on a Friday, a supervisor that I had to pay extra in overtime at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and nobody would show up for the meeting. We were also, asked to do a quote for those, which I attached to your notes in here. We did do a quote, and we did submit it. So.
Ms. Bidwell, 4 minutes right now.
Thank you. Everything's in the packet.
May
for
we
you guys.
keep these?
Yes, you can keep them. I have more if anybody else needs them.
Mr. Brian Thompson.
So I'm here to speak on the same issues that the last two were. Just kind of continue from where she left off. And Mr. Matamoros back here, he hit the nail on the head. So where she was talking about the service that we had actually given a quote for, that was the riverfront lights. To my knowledge, when our inspector was out, our inspector had passed away. At that time, we were kind of lost, and I believe Ronnie from City of Lake Jackson had taken over for a brief period. I met with him and Billy Shoemaker on site on these jobs and talked to him in great length about it. So on that list of our quote that you have in your packet, if I can get to it, most of those problems are listed. Ronnie had actually requested that these things be taken care of before he would actually release the inspection and move forward with it. But when I went by and looked the other day at the riverfront projects, I stopped and looked at this one as well. This was given to the EDC as a quote from me. This is one of the last ones I actually would give them. If you look and see, I have pictures where every single last problem here, with the exception of the meter can, was not taken care of. Those poles are not properly grounded. Those poles have holes the size of my hand in the bottom of them. They're in disrepair. He basically had the service turned on just to have one light per pole working. We discussed at great length on how much it was actually gonna cost to get these lights up and running and be in decent shape. So that's all laid out right there. You have quite a bit of stuff on that one right there. That one was passed as well. The green tag on that was a third-party inspector. So I forget the name of the company, but they are on Alameda in Houston. That one should have never been turned loose. I'm sure it just fell through the cracks, and it wasn't anything wrong with the inspector or anything like that. It just wasn't brought to his attention, and he didn't do due diligence to go further and look to see what he was actually approving his service for. For that matter, the two service poles in question that everybody's been talking about and bringing up, Those, actually had a city, green tag on them. I'm wondering who the inspector on that was. Is it our previous one or is it one now? That should have never been passed according to what I've seen. But, in the invoice in the back here, the gentleman earlier had said that they charged y'all $110 for a permit. They actually charged y'all $220 for 2 permits. It's a city. Y'all shouldn't have to pay yourselves for a permit. That right there. And furthermore, I see a trip charge on this invoice and the next one as well for the dock. They charged a trip charge both times, which if they were doing the job and charging you an hourly rate, I don't see why there would be a trip charge in there. And it says that on here, permit fee waived, discounted normal price, permit is $250. That's about right. If I'm pulling a permit for somebody, I'm gonna charge them $60.
Mr. Thompson, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for y'all
Yes, sir.
allowing me to speak.
Mr. Duncan, I have another request from Ms. Dancy to speak again. What is the policy in regards to additional public comments? General public comments?
Well, you get to speak and you get a 4-minute limit, you get to speak on it. You get to speak one time, you have a 4-minute limit to talk about all the subjects that you have, so if any of these items you want to talk about relates to something else on the agenda, you can speak on each agenda item, but your general, at the beginning, is limited to 4 minutes, no matter how many subjects you want to discuss.
All right, thank you, sir. With that, we'll go into presentation announcements. Ellen, I'm sorry, that's twice.
Me too.
I'm just gonna go home and let somebody else take over. Please, ma'am, do you have a general comment you'd like to make?
Good evening, my name is Melanie Oldham, I live at 922 West 5th Street. I've been a resident of Freeport for almost 10 years now. I am a newly appointed EDC member, I've been on it for 4 months. And I think some of y'all have been watching our EDC meetings, and as you know, myself and Mr. McGinty and others on the board spoke up. We do have concerns about some things we think needs to be modified regarding subcommittees and wise use of public money, that sort of thing. But I'm not here this evening to talk to that right now. I was a little confused because first of all, I always check the agendas on Friday morning, but Mr. Pena and Mr. Mura had amended the agenda kind of last minute and put on items 10 and 11, which I may want to speak to later, but I'm trying to understand what the purpose is. I know one again is to discuss the job performance of Mr. Kelty and one to discuss the job performance of the city attorney. So I'm here, I'm very confused, but I had a concern about the city and EDC attorney, Mr. Chris Duncan. And I had written my concerns down, got it notarized, and I turned it in, and I don't know if you, the board, looked at it last week, or if you're going to, but it sounds like Mr. Mura and Mr. Pena want this discussed in public, so I'm gonna read my statement, if that's okay. Okay, it says, I, Melanie Oldham, live in Freeport, Texas, and I attend city council meetings and other city meetings as a citizen of Freeport. During March 2022, I was walking into a City of Freeport meeting when I stopped and spoke to Chris Duncan in the parking lot, the lawyer for the City of Freeport and the EDC. I asked about my public information request to the city regarding his legal invoices to the city, which I had put in 3 weeks before. Mr. Duncan stated he had sent my request to the Texas Attorney General to see if he had to release that info. Then Mr. Chris Duncan said to me, Melanie, did you know that Troy Brimage has been talking to and negotiating with Port Freeport, and he has stated he would like to sell to Port Freeport Lincoln Park and all the city-owned streets and right-of-ways for only roughly $440,000. And all I could say was, I replied to Mr. Duncan, that's interesting to know. So in the past, especially when I used to be with another group, Mr. Brimage and I always didn't see eye to eye, which is fine, we can all put our opinions out there. And I think that Mr. Duncan wanted me to be upset with Mr. Brimage because I was when I heard that statement, and I called him up and I said, hey, I hear that you've been negotiating with Port Freeport and you're willing to give away, in my mind, our public Lincoln Park and the streets and right-of-ways. And all he could say was, Melanie, that's not complete, that's, I don't know how you put it, not completely true, but, and then I got to thinking that, is this executive session material? Should Mr. Duncan have even told me that information? Was he just trying to get me upset with Mr. Brimage? I don't know what the purpose was, but I have, being on the EDC, I'm not gonna go into it now, maybe when we get to item 11 or whatever. I've done some research, and I've had Mr. Duncan call me up and educate me about why we shouldn't have an executive director, why we should maybe just develop the land off of Skinner on our own. But again, I think, Mr. Duncan, I know he's from here, and a lot of people know him. But again, we all have to stick to the meeting rules. If there's any private negotiating going on between you all and the port, or talks in an executive session, I don't need that information. I'm just a member of the public. I'd like for y'all to look into that. Thank you.
Nicole, did you want to talk?
No, real quick. Then also.
About 11, okay.
Nicole Mireles, live on 2002 North Avenue Q. I guess everybody kind of stole my thunder, but it's like, I'm kind of concerned with the EDC as far as the way it's run. And the other thing is, somebody needs to tell these people, the two that are running the EDC, they need to take the open meeting training again. They didn't allow any of the citizens to speak, and we as citizens have the right. I looked it up today, and citizens are allowed to speak, and they did not let anybody speak. And also, the one that took over the meeting is also always Jeff Pena, just like he does. And the other thing I'd like to make a comment is, there's a lot of several things on here that says Moraida and Pena, Moraida and Pena, and it's kind of ironic that, they've got the both names, but I never hear Mr. Moraida speak. It's always Jeff. Something's wrong with his picture, or maybe he just follows along or whatever. That's my personal opinion. At least that's what I see. And the EDC was very, very, it was bad. The way they treated the citizens. And I was hoping that maybe their lawyer would have told them otherwise, but he kept his mouth shut too. Thank you.
All right, I think I have the rest of them projected for specific agenda items. Am I wrong? Good. Let's go into the presentation announcements. Number one, I'm gonna jump to number two. Call it professional courtesy. Purdue. The presentation of collection of delinquent taxes and court fines and fees from Mr. Honorable Mike Yarlow with First Brandon Felder Collins and Mott LLP.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And since I know the only thing more invigorating than my report is the audit report, I'll go quick so you can hear the audit report. Thank you for a few moments to give you an update on our delinquent taxes and our court fine and fees. I've given you the information. It's in the format that you see each year. Happy to report to you tonight that the city has less than $100,000 of outstanding taxes through the 2020 tax cycle. Come July, we'll start working on the unpaid 2021 taxes. Your current collections so far to date have been pretty strong, so we're hopeful that you won't have a lot of money turned over to us in July. I've given you a graph showing historical collections from the 2015 year forward. I'm happy to go over any one of those in particular, but just to give you a flavor, let me go to the one that's labeled 2020, which we began last July. Back then, you had $153,000 of unpaid 2020 taxes out of over $3.5 million, over $3 million of taxes that you levied. Through March of this year, we've collected 76% of that. So a good, strong current collection of those 2020 taxes. And we expect to end the year in the next few months with several accounts that are scheduled to pay. I always invite people to go to our website at pbfcm.com if they're interested in getting tax sale notifications. Occasionally we have property that is delinquent in the city that has to go to tax sale. The market that we're in right now, anything that we put up for sale is selling, and it's usually selling for more than the opening bid of taxes that may be due. So that's a very positive sign. With that, Mayor, if there's any questions on the property tax portion of my report, I'll be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions or comments?
If not, I'll give you the quick fine and fee update. Late February, early March, we mailed out 1,000 red cards like this to people that have outstanding court fines and fees to the city of Freeport. I'm holding this one because it came back as a bad address. But we sent these out and we've generated a lot of response and activity for the court to get people to take care of their outstanding fines. I provided you some historical collection information on what we've done for the city in collecting the outstanding court fines and fees, as well as how many notices we've mailed, addresses we've corrected, and phone contacts that we've had with violators. And then I provided you 3 maps. I'd like to go to the last map, if I might, and just show this quickly to council. This is a map of the United States. The pins represent people that owe you money, and therein sort of lies the challenge, not only for the courts, but for us as your collector, to get the people that owe the money to come back and deal with the court about their outstanding court fines and fees. We spent a lot of time and energy trying to get our message out to the right people. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or go into any more detail there that council may like on this or anything else we're doing on behalf of the city.
Ms. Darnold, I think the reports, as in years past, are very accurate and professional. We appreciate what y'all do, especially collecting and making sure we get our property taxes, which we use to do things that we need to do up here. Council, any further comments or questions for Mr. Darnold?
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Sir, be safe going back.
Thank you.
Kathy, number 1, presentation of the annual audit with Whitley Penn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I am going to turn this over to Laura Lynch. She is our senior manager for our audit for this fiscal year, and she is with Whitley Penn, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Lynch.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Kelty. We're glad to be here tonight to present the fiscal year 2021 annual financial report. We have 2 items that we've prepared for you. One is the financial report, and the other smaller is just a summary presentation that I'm going to go over. And then after that, if there's any questions you have over the report, we can go through that. The audit team consisted of myself along with Patrick Simmons, the partner, Lupe Garcia, who is a resource partner, Tom Peterson, he's what we call an engagement quality control partner, which means he's independent of the audit itself, and he reviews everything just to make sure that we have everything in place and following all the standards. And then we had Gustavo Guzman, who was the senior associate, and he had help from some more associates to perform the actual work. So the audit process, it's not just, one time we come out for a couple of weeks and it's done. We came out in, I believe it was mid to late September. We went through and did some planning, risk assessment. We meet with several of the department heads and people in the finance department to go over internal controls and determine what we can test, which tests we'll perform so that we know what we can rely on, from the city's internal control processes. Later on, when we come back to do the stand-up testing, that's after year end, after Kathy's had time to close the books and, to make sure all the reconciliations are done. The stand-up testing that we do consists of confirmations over cash and investments, debt. In addition to that, we do, we do sampling of different, balance sheet items and get confirmations, or do testing to confirm that those balances are correct. And all of that in order to provide our opinion on whether the financial statements are, materially correct. So with that, the objective of the audit is to express an opinion on the financial statements. There's actually, three, types of opinions that we can give. From the, furthest to the left, that would be a disclaimer, and that would mean that we go somewhere and the records are in such poor shape that we're not able to issue an opinion. That is not the case here. The next would be a qualification, and that's that we are able to, give an unmodified opinion with a few exceptions, and again, that's not the case here. So, the highest level of assurance that we can give is an unmodified or clean opinion, and that's what we're able to give on your financial statements, for fiscal year 21. And that unmodified opinion provides reasonable assurance that your financial statements, again, are free from material misstatement. You also, for the fiscal year 21, you have, additional reports, the federal single audit report. That is because you received over $750,000 worth of federal funds during fiscal year 21. And, that consisted primarily of your, coronavirus relief funding and some FEMA funding. So in addition to the annual financial report that you have, there's also, internal control over financial reporting, no material weaknesses identified there, and no significant deficiencies reported, and no instances of non-compliance, material to financial statements with the programs that we audited. Your internal control over compliance, no internal control findings related to major programs, and an unmodified opinion on compliance related to the major programs, which was the coronavirus relief fund. Going on from there, we have a summary of your general fund activity. You have beginning fund balance of roughly $7 million. You have revenues of $18 million in the current, or fiscal year 21, expenditures of $16 million. You had other sources, $422,000, so an increase to your fund balance of $1.5 million for an ending fund balance of $8.5 million. Looking at the graph below that, it shows you your unassigned fund balance and general fund, which is your fund balance that can be used, for the purposes of the city. It's not restricted in any way. With that line above that, showing you what fund balance is as a percentage of expenditures, and that's about 53%. So your unassigned fund balance is about 53% of your general fund expenditures. On the next page, you have your water and sewer fund activities. So your water and sewer fund, you had $8.5 million. You had operating revenues, which are your charges for services, of right at $6 million, less your expenses of $6 million as well. In addition to that, you have some non-operating revenues and expenses there, including and transfers out. So you had a decrease in your net position of the water and sewer fund of $191,000. So you ended your fund balance with $8.3 million. And the graph below there just kind of shows you your unrestricted net position, transfers in the past, that's the little blue section about there, and then your unrestricted net position. So you did operate at a deficit there, however, that's going up. You raised rates, so the billing is starting to help that increase a little bit. And one thing to note in the water and sewer fund this year is that in the past, that you have transfers from the general fund, which this year there were no transfers, and so it did, even though you still had a decrease in that position, it was with no transfers from the general fund. And then we just have a few required communications to go through. That's the city's accounting policies and methods are appropriate in accordance with industry standards. That's one of the things that we look at when we're out for the planning process. No new pronouncements implemented in fiscal year 21 that affected the city. However, going forward, GASB number 87, leases, and then GASB number 96, which is similar to leases, but is the subscription-based technology. So fiscal year 22 will implement a new lease standard, and then 23 will be the subscription-based technology arrangements. The preparation of the financial statements, there are estimates that are made by management. What we do as part of our audit is to determine that the estimates they're made with good judgment. They have support for those estimates. Some of the significant estimates in the financial statements include allowances for uncollectibles and your receivables, taxes and utility billing, the liability for your workers' compensation and health insurance claims, and then your net pension and OPEB liabilities, which is also another number that you see primarily in the government-wide statements at the front of your report. We also encountered no significant difficulties in completing the audit. Kathy was very helpful, at giving us all the information that we requested. We do a lot of testing, and that means, getting her and her staff to pull a lot of documents. We did not identify any material misstatements that required management's correction. She provided most of the entries that we needed, just some things during the audit to get financial statements to be materially correct. We had no disagreements with management over the application of accounting matters, and the last piece of evidence, audit evidence that we'll get is a management representation letter that says all information was supplied to us, nothing was withheld, and that's the last bit of confirmation that we received. And then, as far as we're aware, there's been no other consultations with any accountants. It would be fine if there were, but that would be something as auditors that we would want to know. And that our retention as auditors was not contingent on any responses that we get, when we get called with questions. We don't feel pressured into responding in a certain way just in order to be retained as auditors. And that is the last bit of the presentation. If you have any questions about the financial statements themselves, I can answer those.
Council, do you have any questions or comments on the audit? Hearing none, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate the work you do. The next item is number 3, presentation for the annual Veola report. Mr. Carter.
I'm Roger Rowe.
Mr. Rowe.
And I'm James Gordon. This is Jim Carter. I'm the new project manager for Freeport with Veola.
And what was your last name again, sir?
Rowe, R-O-W-E.
Thank you, sir.
We've worked together in the past for many years, but I'll just get to a little bit of the executive summary, and then I'll let James talk about the operations. So, Veola has been providing management and operation and maintenance and service to the city of Freeport since April 14th of 1995, and is ready to stand and serve Freeport in the future. We extend our sincere thanks to the city and the council for continuing to support and for this unique opportunity to serve the citizens of Freeport. Some of our milestones for 2021, well, October 2020 to September 2021, we treated 308.44 million gallons of wastewater. We disposed of 108.04 dry tons of aerobically stabilized and digested biosolids that was sent to landfill. We monitored 2 permitted industries, which are significant industrial users, SIUs, and we cleaned 19,600 feet and replaced over 3,000 feet of sewer.
And like I said, I'm James Carter. I'm the operations manager with Veola. On the first chart there, if we want to go through it, that you can see that shows the month to month from October 20 to September 21. It'll show your monthly average flow, and then the peak flow, as you can tell, peak flow, get down from like May to September, you can tell that that's when we had a bunch of rain and I here in the system. As we sit here today, we do got projects that are in the process, and hopefully it'll take a lot of these issues that I that we have here in town away. Next one, number 2, laboratory. You know, we got our own lab there that we do normal things there, but a lot of our items are sent out to different labs. As he had mentioned on the biosolids, that's what we take, put the dry bins above the dumpster and haul out to the waste field. And then as you can tell, there's just listed several items that started at December of 20, and I went all the way through September 21. It shows, big projects that we at Veola have done during that time frame throughout the city. And I think this is our biggest one. Roger's gonna speak on it, but as of today, it's like 17 years here at Veola on our safety record.
Right, so safety is number 1 at Veola, through daily safety reminders, monthly safety training, personnel are made aware of the department procedures to follow and equipment used to reduce the potential of safety incident. At the end of September 2021, the employees at Freeport had worked a total of 16 years and 9 months with no lost time accidents to report. So we provide the employees with hats, safety shoes, glasses, everything the company pays for, boots, rubber boots, whatever they need to be safe, as well as the training.
That's the next thing, is this the training hours that we offer for each employee down there. So we average 20+ hours a year in training for each one of our employees. There is some appendices in there with some summaries. If y'all got any questions or anything, we'd be more glad to answer anything you got.
Well, I appreciate the safe work hours. That's extremely important, especially with our industrial neighbors that we have. But my question, gentlemen, is you're stating in your executive summary 3,000 feet of sewer lines replaced. Do y'all have a map of something that would show that? I didn't see it in the packet unless I missed it. But if not, could y'all get something that shows what you replaced so we can give it to our city manager?
Well, what we have done there is I've got, with Mr. Kelty, I've been working with him. I came here in December.
Sure.
I've been here 4 months, and Roger, actually, this is his first day here. So, we came into this, but yes, I've been working with Tim and all the lands pretty closely on all these sewer projects that's coming up. Lines that we have filmed or have record of, and that we've replaced. We've been working closely with Freeze and Nichols as well on this.
But
So,
if y'all have, like I said, just a generic map, Tim, if you can help them in some way, just so we can have a map, kind of like we have on the walls over here, where we anticipate future, back in the middle on that side and up in front by the jury box on this side, so we can show the citizens what lines have been replaced.
Okay. We also have an upcoming capital report, what Veola would suggest. We have a capital team and corporate working on.
Okay.
In the next few months.
And that will work in conjunction with our GLO grants and the.
I think so, yes.
that is what I've been working with them, with Freeze and Nichols on the north end, all the sewer projects coming up.
Perfect. That's all I'm looking for, just that map, and I sure appreciate it. Council, anybody else have any questions or comments? Jimmy, we appreciate you. Mr. Rowe, like I said, welcome to Freeport. We look forward to working with you. Mr. Carter, thank you. Now I will call it into council business regular session. Item number 4, consideration of possible action on the approval of city council meeting minutes from March 21st, 2022 and April 4th, 22. Council, this being your packet, and I'll certainly entertain a motion in some form.
So moved.
Have a motion from Councilman Branch to approve. Is that correct, sir? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second from Councilman Kane. Gentlemen, are there any questions or comments in regards to the meeting minutes?
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Pena, as to both, or is there a particular meeting?
The meeting before last, just wanted to make sure that those minutes were updated to have Pam Tilly's comments regarding the east end on there. I'm trying to. They were. They just on there.
Yeah, I thought I saw her comments on there, Jeff.
All right. Just want to make sure we're sure here, Ms. Tilly is in the public or online, to just want to let you know that was addressed. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Betty, thank you, ma'am. Item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding trash service agenda item revision. An item, Mr. Kelty, Mr. Councilman Finney, and Councilman Mariah, and I have 1, 2, 3 folks that want to speak. Mr. Reyna, Sam?
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Sam Lena, and I reside at 2002 North Avenue G. American Waste Solution, bulk waste pickup. Highlighted, there will be a $30 charge per cubic yard when you exceed 5 cubic yards. They're not picking up 1 cubic yard unless that's 5. Construction and remodeling debris will not be picked up, period. Even if it's your own remodeling work that you're doing, they will not pick it up. It depends on how much you have. We take it to the landfill, they're gonna charge you $300 no more. Second page, section 5 of the contract. Contractor shall collect all items placed at the curb that are included in the residential waste services on the first pass by of the customer. Contractor shall, that's mandatory, they will pick it up. Contractor may, in his sole discretion, reject any included waste provided by the customer. Contractor may, that means not mandatory, but permissible. In other words, they may pick it up, or they may not pick it up. It's up to them. If they pick it up, good for the citizens. If they don't pick it up, there's nothing we can do about it. Mr. Duncan, am I right on that assumption? They may or may not pick it up? When it says contractor may, in his sole discretion, reject any excluded waste provided by the customer?
We'll answer that, he'll answer that question. Sam, go ahead with your comments.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, page 3. Highlighted. Bulky waste, heavy trash exceeding the 5 cubic yard limit shall be charged an additional fee per cubic yard over the 5 cubic yard limit, which shall be determined and evidenced by the contractor. Page 4, excluded waste. I'm going back to, it's highlighted, I'm going back to the building construction. There will not pick up any remodeling debris, period. And then page 5 is just examples of excluded waste. And the rest of this, they're all complaints, a bunch of complaints about the services we get for American Waste Solutions. And this is just a few, there's hundreds of complaints against that company. If you go all the way to the back, I found this funny when I see them in the yards. Bull bags. These bull bags, they'll tell you exactly how many cubic yards are in there. After 5 yards, they'll pick them up free. Anything over the 5 cubic yards, you're gonna have to pay for it. But these concerned citizens went ahead and bought their own bull bags, so that way American Waste Solution can say, well, I picked up 10 cubic yards and charge them 150 extra. Or this bull back here will tell them exactly how much I got in there extra. And I think that's a good idea. When I see them in different yards, I took pictures of them, I said, man, that's kind of neat. Thanks, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, the next is Madam Morris, please, sir.
Okay, Russ, can I hear what the revisions may be, and then possibly have a comment afterwards?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
Janelle. Come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the representatives from AmeriWaste we invited to be here tonight to discuss and hopefully clarify and to answer council's questions. Mike's yours.
Mayor and council, I brought with me Jamie Ford. He is the supervisor that is in Freeport Monday through Saturday from about 7 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. We did do a PowerPoint presentation that has some pictures that will probably, Jamie will explain how that pile could get into compliance with the contract. It also shows pictures of what residents are putting out that are not in compliance. So, if, is that the clicker?
There you go.
This is just a brief that we did come in prior to the contract. We brought in 11 residential trucks plus our brush truck, and we cleaned up almost 70 tons that were left by Waste Connections with us starting the contract the next day. That's our head count that was here. Since then, through last Wednesday, which was a zone, we've picked up an additional 83 tons of bulky waste from the city of Freeport. These are all flyers that have been developed with the staff to communicate with the residents. Education is a big part of getting everything off the curb. Kathy, Tim, and our staff have worked to try to get the word out. That's the new door hanger that's being used. Jamie's in town. He starts on Thursday before the zone pickup. He drives through the city. He finds all the piles that are in non-compliance. He'll put, if they're over the cubic yards, he'll put that on there. He'll put the price. Basically, you're getting 6 days at that point to try to come in compliance prior to when that zone is picked up. We've had lengthy conversations with Mr. Kelty, and basically we don't pick up anything that's not in compliance. We've given the residents the price and the opportunity. We're not out there picking up $150 and $900 piles. We're picking up what's in compliance. This is notification to the resident that they're not in compliance. We can keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Jamie's gonna explain what 5 cubic yards are, where people can try to get a visual and understand what that yardage is.
How are y'all doing? So just to get an idea, everyone has a red can. If you take 9 of our red cans, 3 wide, 3 deep, 3 feet high, our red cans are actually a little bit higher than that. You're gonna get roughly 5 cubic yards. So that kind of gives you a visual of what.
How much higher, sir, than a can?
Well, 6 feet by 8 feet by 3 feet is going to be just over 5 yards. These red cans are just over 3 feet. So this is a little bit more than 5 yards. Next, another visual. You can take a VW bug. That's going to kind of give you an idea about 5 yards. I've got some pictures of brush. This here is within 5 yards. It's out of compliance. To make it in compliance, the brush needs to be cut, tied, and bundled within 4 feet in length, no more than 18 inches in diameter and less than 50 pounds. That way the haulers can grab it and throw it in the truck. And when the brush is cut, tied, and bundled, it's not going to leave a mess all over the street, and that's one of the issues. This is considered 5 yards, a 5-yard pile. Again, it's out of compliance. You have brush and construction mixed together. If it was separated, the brush is to the side, cut, tied, and bundled, we're able to remove the brush. We would have to leave the construction. Another picture that's out of compliance, you have construction on the left side, some siding, I believe that's an attic door, and then the brush is on the right side. Keep going. So here is a construction pile that's separated from brush. The brush just needs to be cut, tied, and bundled again, 4 feet in length, 18 inches in diameter, and no more than 50 pounds. Now in that construction pile, there is some carpet in there that can be cut, tied, and rolled up. Most people roll them up with tape. We can pick that up with regular trash. That can be counted as one of the 5 extra piles with your trash. Here's another example of a 5-yard pile. Again, just needs to be bundled. Same thing, we have construction and brush here mixed together. If it's separated, cut, tied, and bundled, we're able to remove that. Keep going. A lot of these are the same. Okay, here's a good example. So this is a little over a 6-yard pile of brush. This was one of the homes we left a door hanger on, notifying them to cut, tie, and bundle it. Again, it's over 6 yards. Next picture. Came back out. They had it cut, tied, and bundled. And that equals to just a little under 3 yards. So you kind of get an idea of how much you can compact it when it's cut, tied, and bundled. One of the issues we're having is our duplexes. This is off Cherry Street. It's one of the spots they're using to just kind of dump heavy trash. Construction, it's hard to tell where it's coming from. Some of the duplexes are under construction, they're vacant, they're remodeling. So this is one of the areas where they're dropping heavy trash. The after picture, we did pick up the mattresses, the couches, some of the heavy trash next to it, but like I said, one of the issues we're having is they're just picking spots kind of on the side of the road and not curbside.
Go ahead and continue. We'll get with you in just a second, sir.
This is some fencing, just looking from the road, it looks like a lot of the boards are 6 feet longer. You can actually take the fencing and again, cut it down within length, 4 feet, no more than 50 pounds, and we're able to take that with regular trash. They can have, if it's within the 5 items, and then if the heavy trash is up following Wednesday, we'll pick up the 5 yards of it. But fencing, they can cut it down and bundle it, and we'll take it. It's hard to see in this picture, but you have 2 couches and some carpet next to it. We're able to take the couches. The carpet was kind of just thrown out there. Roll it up just like the brush, just bundle it, and we'll take it. We got a palm tree that's probably 6 or 7 feet long. Was just thrown out to the curb. It's out of compliance. Same thing. Someone just dug up a tree and threw it out. So this is brush that's not cut, tied, or bundled, but we're finding a lot of tree trunks like this that are that are over 18 inches in diameter. These would have to be cut down and within 50 pounds. The brush needs to be cut, tied, and bundled. Same thing. A lot of over the limit brush that's not cut, tied, or bundled. So this house, they had a lot of remodeling done. Mostly construction, but there's heavy trash underneath that construction. There's a recliner, a couch, stuff we can't get to. If that's separated from the construction, we're able to take it. The carpet they threw on top of the construction debris, that stuff can be rolled up and we'll take it with the recliner and the couch, but it needs to be separated from the construction. Again, out of compliance, brush that's not cut, tied, or bundled. I'll find a few of these. These are homes that are vacant. You can't tell in the picture, but the house has a lockbox on it. It looks like someone moved out and maybe the landlord came in and kind of just threw everything out on the curb. This is considered a move out. As far as I know, the landlord is responsible of getting that cleared out if no one's living there. Move on, next. Again, just more heavy trash and brush that's just mixed together. I believe that was a 30-yard pile that stretched across the front yard. Next. More brush that could have been cut, tied, and bundled. This house, they actually separated their heavy trash and construction, so we're able to get the mattress and the stuff next to it. So this house has black bags, I believe that were supplied by the city, full of tile, sheetrock, construction that we're not able to take. One thing I wanted to bring up on brush, the residents are able to use these black bags or their own bags and fill them up with brush, and that'll be considered, again, another one of the 5 items next to their cans. Another house that's been remodeling, that's flooring on the right side, and then I believe sheetrock on the left, so all construction debris. More sheetrock that's just sat on the curb. Another issue I ran into is I'm finding heavy trash on empty lots. This was a recliner that sat on an empty lot, there's no house in front of it. That chair could have just been put out in front of someone's house and we would have taken it, but we're finding furniture and other brush on empty lots and also in alleyways where there's no house next to it. That stuff needs to be put curbside. So one of the areas, Bridge Harbor, we're finding different spots throughout the neighborhood, not curbside, it's actually put out across the street. And it looks like the street is kind of using that area for like just a local spot for the street to kind of throw their heavy trash or brush. That stuff needs to be put curbside so we know who it belongs to.
Tim, is that the area that you're getting the no dumping or have gotten the no dumping signs?
Yeah. Where we put it?
Yeah, on the main road, I don't have a brain fart here, but on the field side where there's no houses, we've been finding construction debris and heavy trash. Perfect, thank you. This was all remodeling and construction debris. I actually spoke to this resident, and the landlord actually did all the remodeling. He made contact with the landlord and he's disposed of all this construction debris, so. I'm sorry, go back one more. Okay, so in this pile, there's actually carpet, again, that can be separated. If it's cut, rolled up, we'll take it. And then there's cardboard boxes that's mixed in there. Again, that can be separated from the construction, and it will go along with the regular trash.
What about the pallet that's in that picture?
No, that's part of construction, yeah.
The pallet would also be like fencing if it was
Broken down.
tied within the requirements, it would go away.
Next. See, a lot of this is just brush that's not cut, tied, or bundled.
The thing with the brush is if it is cut, bundled and tied in accordance with the contract and with just about every solid waste contract I'm aware of, you put it by your trash can on your pickup day and it's gonna go away. You don't have to wait till your zoned day, because that could count as one of your items. Utilizing personal trash cans, we've got about 100 in the city. 4 foot, stick it in a trash can, it's gonna go away on your pickup day. You don't have to wait till your zone day. Stick up that recliner, it's gonna go next to your trash can, it's gonna get picked up on your regular trash can. It doesn't have to wait till your zone day. So I think the big thing that we all need to work together with is to continue to educate the residents, because then they will see that things go away. A lot of construction going on, a lot of construction crews going out, the gentleman spoke. Takes $300 to go to landfill. Someone's supposed to pay that, that's doing that remodel. We've got companies coming in and cutting down trees and taking them to the curb. One thing you need to remember is you've got about 7% of non-compliance, and you're asking for 100% of your residents to pay the bill. It's like, you have one electric bill in the city and everyone shares. You know, so electric, water, gas, you're all paid, you are charged by your usage. Trash is the same way. You know, those that produce the large volumes, you know, they should pay as they go. Instead of making 100% of your residents pay a higher fee, that never do anything that's out of compliance.
What was the percentage you said of non-compliance?
About 7%.
And that's from your active observation of driving the streets?
That's 7% of all
The
citizens.
entire homes in the city.
In Ward B, this last go around, which a lot of your pictures were on there, what I counted from my count on Saturday prior to the Saturday afterwards, 53% got picked up, 47% non-compliant. That's just of those that had bulk trash sitting out.
But then you had a whole bunch that didn't have anything sitting out. Does anyone have any questions we can maybe answer? Some direction that you'd like to see? I think it's just a matter of continuing to educate. I think they're sending out flyers almost every water bill. We're doing door hangers. Jamie ends up talking to a lot of people.
I get stopped a couple times a day. I get all stopped, and you know, most of the time they just don't know what's in compliance and what falls under compliance. So I try to educate them as much as I can, and they understand. And most of the time they said they'll be with their neighbors. So I try to do what I can while I'm out there in the field on the streets.
Council, do you have any questions? And I'm gonna get to the audience here in just a second.
The 18-inch diameter, whether it's a tree stump or a bundle, why is 18 inches the magic number?
It has to do with the blade and the compacting on the truck. If it's larger than that, it can cause that blade to jam, which then busts the rails in the truck, which then means we can't come pick up anything.
Which is important information that people need to know.
There you go. It has to do with the blade and the rails and the whole compacting system when it gets too big. Because it doesn't give. A recliner will give because it's got, you know, stuffing or things like that. But lumber and the big stumps, they don't really like to give. You know, we're only about 2.5 months into the contract. We can talk about doing revisions at this point. I personally think that we have to continue educating. We haven't even gone through one of the community cleanups yet, which will be scheduled sometime, probably in the summer. You know, so if it takes everyone working together, it takes the council, it takes staff, it takes my folks, it takes residents that are willing to go clean up their zone and haul it away, you know, to train everyone to allow you to keep your costs down instead of having to pay a tremendous amount for the removal of trash. I can promise you guys there is no contract in this area, Harris County, Fort Bend, Galveston, Brazoria, up in the Woodlands, that basically has a take-all, which is kind of what some people are alluding to, that if it gets out to the curb, it goes. There's no such contract. So.
In regard to education, in your packet, this is the flyer that went out in December that we worked with Waste Connections to put together. These go out in English and in Spanish to give folks notice ahead of time that this was coming. And then we also developed this door hanger. There were 4 separate door hangers that were designed and these were passed out specifically to those addresses, based on board. So if you were first, second, third, or fourth week, determine which of these door hangers you got. And one of the things that's important to note is that folks need to put their bulky waste out. If they're setting it out as bulky waste, the weekend before the Wednesday pickup, because they do bulky waste on Wednesday. And so we have had a number of issues where people have been picked up on Wednesday and people have put out bulky waste the following weekend after that, and it has sat there for a month. This was a notice that was attached to the cans to give them additional information when those were distributed. And this is a notice that was just sent out recently to residents to really help emphasize, what we're looking for in cooperation from them and working together to get the bulky waste picked up. On the door hanger that we put together both in English and Spanish, in Ward B, AmeriWaste actually started delivering these the week before the regular Wednesday pickup, to those residents where they saw that there had been bulky waste put out ahead of time. And I was very excited to see as I drove around a couple of days after this was passed out, there were a lot of residents that were out actually picking up, reducing the amount of bulky waste that they had down to the 5 cubic yards, or bundling limbs and brush. And so that I think helped very, very well. Because the fact is we don't want to. In the future, they will actually hang these out on that Wednesday as they find them, and folks will have until the following Wednesday to make adjustments before they're charged. You don't have to charge anybody if not, but we need to have those areas cleaned up. If it is in fact construction waste, we will probably have to have code enforcement address those, because whereas, and I will say this on behalf of AmeriWaste, even though the contract doesn't require it, I did notice as I drove around, they were picking up in Ward B unbundled brush. They're not going to continue to do that indefinitely. But
We also sneak into town on Saturdays.
it is in an effort, because I do know that people are needing to be educated and to understand what the requirements are.
Council, comments?
I have a couple more, or at least one. On the one house that you showed, that was a move-out situation.
Yes.
Obviously, vacant house, a lot of debris out there. Are we communicating that with the city, so the city
Oh,
can start
absolutely.
looking?
I think Kathy's entire email is full of pictures from us. And they in turn are contacting the
Responsible
owner
person.
of the home to make them aware that they are responsible for that. Rent homes is a business, and all these rent home owners are making money off of those properties, and so they are technically responsible for the removal of all of that trash that gets generated.
I don't know if we have the exact vehicle to get that done, but I think it's something the council needs to consider, that if they're out there, some of these are even a constable seizure or something like that, where we just pull the things out, that we have these folks pick up, but we actually put a lien or something on the house so we get paid back, or we charge the landlord, because I don't think that we should have to pay for it. But two, I also don't think it ought to sit out there 30 days or 40 days or 3 months, and we're waiting on a landlord to do something, and so forth. And so, any further questions before I go to the citizen comments?
I have some comments.
No questions, just comments?
Well,
Okay, go ahead, sir.
there's a lot to unwrap. I want to make first comment to say, thank you for coming tonight.
No problem.
And thank you, Mr. Kelty, for helping to put this on the agenda. I can tell you if I was a private residence and my trash wasn't picked up, or my neighbor's trash wasn't picked up on my street, I would make a complaint. That's what I was elected to do, so I make no apologies. In fact, there are a lot of people that are not here tonight that have urged me to bring this up. And we talked about 40%, 47% left behind. I'd like 5%. So we have a way to go. Places I've lived, always in this state, they use a claw, and they gather everything. I'll make another comment here that the rent homes that are owned by landlords, those landlords pay taxes for these very same services. So I don't want to vilify unfairly the landlords, and I know there are many here in this city. What is the percentage of renters in the city of Freeport, Mr. Kelty? Is it something like 60%?
Anywhere between 55 to 60%.
Yeah.
There's a 60%, 55, 60, but I would also say that.
So I would say that
solid waste is not a property tax supported service, it's supported as a user fee service.
Well, all the same, it gets paid for the bills. I'm gonna say that. Start off with that, I should say. I'd like to get the maze of the contract to shalls. I'd like for there to be less excuses and less hoops for the residents to jump through. Now, I believe there is an educational cycle that needs to be met. But, you can crawl, you can walk, and you can run, but the citizens are not crawling with their trash, they're not walking with their trash, they're not running with their trash, they're sprinting with their trash. And maybe this week and this month, they didn't put out trash, but the other 1,000 homes or hundreds of homes are gonna put it out the next month, and I'm wondering what the percentage will be. So it would be interesting to measure that, because what gets measured gets managed. I believe that completely. I can tell you right now, we're out of the gate, and I brought this up because a lot of the sentiment that I hear is that it's not good enough yet. And I can tell you that to have to be told, hey, you gotta cut, tie it, and bundle it, it's like you're asking us to wrap it up with a ribbon and set it up like for Christmas, and for that matter, set it up widely so like it's a yard sale. And that's not practical. I'm looking for a practical solution on this. I've also mentioned here, there was mention about these black bags, that it's not like a black box. You don't just put anything in there. But it seems that AmeriWaste is looking through those bags, looking through people's trash to determine whether or not they're gonna pick it up. That's a lot of effort that can easily just be picked up and thrown away like other black bags. But what's interesting is that if brush is placed in those black bags, it's taken. I'm kind of concerned about that, just because when I hear residents talk about recycling and biodegradable bags, it sounds like these black bags, I don't know that they're biodegradable, are they, Mr. Kelty?
No.
Okay, if they're not biodegradable.
Thank you, Mr.
then we-
Kelty. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. This is not a comprehensive solution. We can get better. And I know that you guys are in the trash business and you guys can get it better. But I know it will get better. Because people will continue to put out trash. They're sprinting on a regular basis. People are not gonna stop their trash habits. So we gotta be flexible to help educate them. We can't penalize them. So like this, I don't know if anybody else can see what we're seeing on these monitors, or all the monitors like. Can you guys see this AmeriWaste flyer that has the bulk waste is X yard, feet, and everything else? So if you, the beloved and notorious CCF Facebook page had a posting by one of the residents, who the resident was, but they had one of these posted. It was Vivian Garcia, I think, put on her door.
Hold on one second, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
Would y'all like to sit in the two chairs, or are you still okay if the company standing? Okay.
Basically, this particular message, and I didn't put a slideshow together tonight just because I was busy with so much else getting ready for tonight. But the collection was on April 6th. And I want everybody to understand that somebody got a letter, just like the one, go back to the please, Mr. Kelty, on that slide. Just right here. And they, on 4/7, they received the notice that by 4/13, they better have their whole yard picked up. And I just think that that's completely unfair. When we're trying to educate, yes, but we need to have a fair and reasonable turn time for this so that folks can. I don't disagree that we do need to comply. Maybe people weren't used to putting out their trash a certain way, but it makes no sense to hammer them with fees. We know that the income, the socioeconomic household income. It's not one where they have this kind of disposable income to be penalized for a service that they used to have taken away. I mean, the trash was taken away before. And again, for all the places I've lived, and I'm a military brat, I've never seen the trash being picked apart and just, you put it out in the yard, it goes. Certain day of the week, certain day of the month. But I also want to make mention that, let me make these other comments here before I get to the rest. So essentially, I want to make sure we're not penalizing the residents unfairly. And if you guys looked at your Facebook page, or my Facebook page, and one I shared over to the CCF Facebook page, I posted, if you can go one more slide, Mr. Kelty, that one there. I actually screenshotted this here, and I just thought, you know what? I'm glad that this particular program has these rules outlined. There's a lot of do nots. And so, and I don't have this as a slide, so everybody would have to just join me here on Facebook. But I'll just tell you, I came up with an idea. It's called Better Service Solutions, AKA the Good Neighbor Program. And essentially, instead of, I'm going to touch on the top four, and then I'll let the public speak and have any other questions by Mero Waste be answered. It says, do not put out more than 5 cubic yards. Solution, well, I asked, how is this measured? Mero Waste can pick up 5 yards and leave the rest. Or maybe what we can do is have the neighbors allow their 5-yard allowance next door be used so that everyone gets their trash hauled away and everyone wins. The second one I have is there will be a $30 charge per cubic yard when you exceed 5 cubic yards. Let's use the Good Neighbor Program and share your 5 cubic yards allotment. No more senseless fines for Freeport residents trying to have clean homes and yards and neighborhoods. The third one is brush must be tied in bundles no more than 50 pounds, 18 inches in diameter, and 4 feet in length. All brush should be picked up, period, like all other cities in Texas. Or each ward should have a couple of bins for brush only, or better yet, a community compost program could be created for residents. Let's help Freeport, not fine our good residents. And then I look at the construction and remodeling debris that will not be picked up. I'm thinking, man, we here at council have heard about people fixing their houses up. There's old toilets, there's sinks. I'm not sure where we're going with the picture.
I've asked him to go to the picture for me.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
There's old toilets and sinks and tubs that should be hauled away. That is normal. A small way to help those who are investing to beautify their own homes inside and out is not to penalize them and fine them. Let's just pick this up. They're trying to beautify Freeport. The last one I have here is no hazardous waste, paint, tires, TVs. A hazardous waste drop-off dumpster would also be helpful to avoid illegal dumping. Same for construction materials. And I did post also on Facebook that a story that I actually found or came upon people who were illegally dumping at the beach. And I can tell you that I just showed it at the beach that one day. There were some side roads on that same day that I saw piles of trash. I saw piles of personal trash and I saw piles of construction materials. And this is the problem that we face if we don't get this problem resolved fairly, prudently, and I think we can get there. I will say this though, and I wasn't going to leave this with the other comments, but since we're on this topic, I'll leave it with this. These side efforts in Ward Ward D, by I think Mr. Hayes, and I forget the gentleman's name, but I write it down. That makes my point. That makes my point because people are going to take this matter into their own hands and dump illegally, or they're going to basically, if they can afford to, pick it up themselves and maybe pick up some of the neighbors too. But that's not the solution. The solution is they're paying good tax dollar money for making sure that this is a comprehensive solution. And lastly, not everybody can afford to pay to get their trash removed somewhere else. And so we're going to rely on this. So we got to make sure that this is simple, reliable, and affordable. We got to remember who our residents are. Always know who your customer is. #1 role of customer service. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other council person?
I just want to say that, yeah, the reason my name is in the agenda item is because if we needed to take action tonight, I do believe that it was necessary to have that on there. That was the only agreement that I had with Mr. Pena. But if he did touch on things that were, important, well, first off, I'd like to say maybe we probably already need to schedule that citywide cleanup. There's a lot of trash in a lot of places, so we probably need that to make that here pretty soon instead of later on, August, September. Yeah, definitely the citizens do need an education cycle and giving them some fines right away. I haven't had that complaint. I did see the complaints on Facebook, but we probably need to give them a little bit more time, or probably said, hey, this is the deadline. We see it go past this month. After this month, we're gonna start charging you, or something like that. I think I don't know if I saw that before. That the city had stated that somewhere else, but I think that would be a solution. Other than that, that's and also the dump, hazardous waste dump or something of that nature would probably help. I think Lake Jackson has something of that nature. I've seen them on their Facebook website. We could probably look into getting something of that nature. But other than that, that's all the comments that I have.
Thank you, sir. Any other council member? All right. Before y'all leave, I'd like to go over to that little bit on let some citizens comment, and then we're gonna respond, and we'll give y'all the last word. Mr. Willerson.
20 years ago, told y'all people, put the city works back together. If they can't pick up the trash the way the citizens want to pick it up and get rid of it. Waste management picked up the heavy trash. Waste management picked up the bulk trash. We didn't have no complaints. Now we got to tie up trees, cut wood and certain. No, if they can't do it the way the citizens want to do, get rid of them. Put the city works back together. These people need jobs. And this city right here, much as it rain and flood and toilets backing up in the house, they're going to always have construction material because the city is lacking in taking care of their own responsibilities. Now, extorting us out of more money, we don't need no fines because the city's supposed to pick up the trash anyway. That's the city's responsibility. And for you to say pay $30, I'm not paying y'all nothing. Y'all gonna pick that trash up out there. Now, when you show Cherry Street, you know what that is? That's a garage door. That's all that is, and 2 tires. Pick up the trash. And y'all need to do better than that. Y'all charging us money for everything, everything.
Not for comments. Yes, sir. Did you
You want some money for that too? I'll give it to you.
Yeah, that's your own accord, sir. Did you fill out the form, Joe?
Well, I just came out, I was doing something else, and I was listening on the online.
Sure.
And I'd like to say some comments.
He's not supposed to say
All right.
nothing to me.
While you're filling out the comment,
Okay.
while you're filling out the comment, Mr. Bacon, I think you asked to speak.
Think we have to sign up ahead of time?
Yes, sir.
You can sign over
We'll make
now.
it short and sweet.
Well, get up there and get you a form, Mr. Sal. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't want to have to get involved with this. Go ahead and sign the form.
Please. Go ahead, sir.
I got one about the trash and something else if you don't mind.
Well,
Or just stick to the trash.
trash right now, and if you want to talk about another item, let me know and I'll put it on your form.
Robert Bacon, 722 West 10. So the bulk trash, now what about the elderly people? You know, they can't get out there and put it out there and tie it up and all that stuff. Are we gonna make amends for them people? You know, somebody come by and say, hey, well, they're of a certain age or whatever, to make it feasible for them? Are we gonna make that happen?
Well, I think it's something we ought to talk about. You've already heard the owner of the company say that they're willing to talk about particular provisions, so I think that's something we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
But I want to be very specific to everybody here. Council had a chance to review this. There was a committee selected between 2 council folks to look at this with Mr. Kelty. 1 councilman participated, 1 did not. But everybody here voted for it. The other thing I'm gonna bring up real quick is on the last contract, Waste Connections, it was so, the former, supplier, that was, so loved now. We had the same amount of votes and negative comments about them. And I just wanna remind you, and not particularly you, Mr. Bass, speaking to the microphone and probably speaking too much. But these folks came in and picked up 80-something, 60-something, I don't know how many tons of trash that was left by these beloved former folks that we had. The other thing I'd say, then we'll shut up, is that per the prior contract, do you know they had something in there that's supposed to be contained, tied, and enclosed when you're hauling waste away? So Waste Connections have the same requirements as Ameriwaste. Thank you for your comments. Did you want to talk about one other thing though?
Yeah.
Mr. Bacon, do you know what it was?
I got it right here if you don't mind.
No, I can't just talk about it now unless it's about trash. All right, we're gonna follow the rules, I already said that.
Mayor, can I have one thing in there, just real quick?
Please.
It's short, and Ameriwaste was the only company that turned in a bid other than West Connections. This was our only other choice other than the complaints we had been dealing with before.
Correct. Thank you, sir. Where's Joel? Is Joel the first name?
Julia?
Joel, there you go. Go ahead, sir, please.
Sorry, I was riding fast.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Like I said, I was busy, something, and I just come out. And, really, personally, I don't have problem. I'm real organized with my trash, and I don't have problem. But I don't want to see that city full of trash.
Yeah.
And gotta be, find the right way to do it. I don't care if you have to find somebody, you have to, don't find or whatever is the best way, but I need to see a clean city. 3 months ago, I sent a video to the manager, Peña, and Muraya. I don't see to the other one because I don't have the phone numbers. I wish to have it. But 3 months ago, I guess, no Mario, but I guess the manager, a video with a full trash, and they say, okay, it's an empty house, but somebody has to take care to push the owner to clean it up. I don't want to see any time when I walk my dog, see the trash again, and it's still there. 12th Street, 8 and 11. I keep it in mind because I've been there for too many days. And we already had this company. We had to work with them. It's no choice to say, hey, you gotta go away and bring another one. It's not the right way. And probably the contract, you have to pay a lot of money to break a contract. But we can share the rules. You know what I mean? Probably I put one time a big trash in my house. Probably one time a year. Why don't we are flexible and don't say only 5 cubic yards? Like me, only one time, probably never. And say a little bit more flexible. It's a 8 cubic yard, and let's pick it up. Because this house, every month, he ain't gonna put up 5 cubic yards. They gotta be just flexible with a customer, with a contract. And like I hear Peña on the way, I have good neighbors, and whenever it's coming a big trash in my house or there, we gonna share my yard just to split 5 yards from here, 5 yards from there, and I find my solution. But most of the citizens, they don't listen right now, they don't want to follow the rules, because before February, we can put everything, no 5 cubic yards, and sooner or later, the whole company pick it up. Sometimes quick, sometimes they took a long time, and they pick it up. It doesn't matter how much, the weight, how much big, they pick it up. But like I say, it's not to fix a problem, hey, bring the new company. I know we cannot. Let's roll with them, and like I say again, they can be flexible. It's 6 yards, let's pick it up. Not every month they're gonna be 6 yards right there. You're gonna leave it just because it's a 1 more yard cubic right there? They have business and they have to work with to keep our business. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Casal.
Yes.
May I have the form, please, sir?
Thank you.
Or look over there.
I didn't come here to speak on this issue, but it doesn't take hours to decide what to do. They've got some problems, we want to solve them. but to tie up all this time and a long, long conversation, you know, we've had trash pickup for 100 years here. So it should be simplified. If you need to put 2 or 3 people together, get together, decide what the issues are, and it doesn't take all this long. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, council, any other citizen will make, yes, sir. Ms. Nancy, I'll change your form, make sure you're on here. Number 5. Thank you, sir.
David Strode. I don't think you'd be educated on trash. I think maybe the companies be educated. Right. Equipment is out there. You know, you mentioned the claw. The previous company, I had no problem with them. They go out there, with the claw, just pick everything up, put it in a big truck, haul it off. No issues with whatever was put out there. Now, I got a tree that got down, actually 3 trees. So that means I had to cut the trees down a little bit at a time. Knocking it down, bringing it down, and then tying it up. The brushes that I saw on the pictures, how you gonna tie them up? You know, there's no way to cut them up neatly. So you're saying, they get educated, find the equipment out there, that they have the claw, and they get it done. Now, one comment on the guys that get off the truck to pick trash, they are fast, and they are good. But they expect them to pick up 50-pound bundles at a time, they're not gonna make it all day. They're just not. So they need education, not us.
Thanks, sir. I'm sure you do. Give me a second, please, sir. That's a picture of folks that went back after they were spoken to by the Mayor Waste that went with the bundling and so forth. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, Waste Connection had the same requirement. I think as one of the gentlemen said though, they just didn't pick up. Or when they did pick up, they come back and use some other type of bucket truck or some type of other claw or something like that. You follow this, there is a way to do it appropriately. These folks have done it appropriately right here in this picture. Ms. Ware, you want to speak on number 5?
My name's Lucy Ware, and I'm a landlord in Freeport also. I don't have any complaints about them, but as far as landlords being charged for tenants' junk or things that they leave over, I don't think it's right, because when they have to do rid of possessions and the sheriff constable puts everything out front, they just throw it out there, and we have to pay someone to take their junk and put it in the yard. I think there needs to be some way to charge the tenant, if it was on their water bill or whatever, but I don't think the landlord should be responsible.
Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Danson? Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. There's a little incident outside. All right, Mr. Hayes, will you close the doors, please, sir? Mrs. Dancy, do you want to come up here, please, ma'am? Let's continue and we'll have order.
This is a long conversation on trash, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I personally, but then it's just me, I don't have a problem with the service. I have a problem where I see even on my street, Front Street, where everything is just thrown out there, pictures that he has. And I can understand that, I mean, if you're gonna haul it out there, it takes more than one trip, might as well separate it, you know what I mean? So I think it's the citizens that are failing in some ways, but I also do remember with waste management that things did have to be bundled because I was told so with my palm tree limbs. Also, when the claw would come, it would also mess up my driveway at times, but then again, I don't have extensive driveway. But anyway, I just wanted to, like the guy across from me had an Easter party and his trash can is just overflowing because I guess he's unaware to put things in extra bags or whatever and then put it to the side. So, Yeah. I mean, it just makes Freeport look like we're trashing people.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I want to apologize if I was just for reacting to, Ms. Bremage's comment that she made to me. I should never have reacted that way.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, is there, are there any more public comments? Your forum. Oh, yes, Mr. Morris. Pardon me? I didn't see it. Oh, okay.
Mayor, if everyone could open those doors, if something's coming, I want to see it coming.
There's three, four, please.
What's that?
There's three officers.
Okay.
You're always welcome, Ms. Martin.
I'll have a form, I'm sorry.
You're the exception.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to add a comment to, I think it was Mr. Bacon, when he, made a comment about elderly, and I wanna speak up for the handicap. I'm blind, apparently, I can't see any of the trash, so none of that is bothering me. But, yeah, I think the only thing that I would like to suggest is that maybe there's some sort of a hotline number or something where when people need assistance with something like cutting the trash down or bundling and tying it up or whatever, if there is some number or some kind of program that could be put together to help citizens like myself and my mom, who, my dad passed away, and so there's no, besides my son, you know, there's no man in the house to kind of do all of that sort of thing, and we wanna be compliant like everybody else, you know, and we have a lot of things that we're gonna be throwing out, here in the very near future in our house, just trying to make some changes, so I would like to see, like some sort of a number where we could call and say, hey, we need your help, and just to get some assistance with, making sure that we're compliant. And for elderly, disabled, and whoever else may need that type of assistance too. All right,
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mayor, may I make a quick comment? You've already had your comment. That was a good one. Leave it alone, don't go down. Sorry, stay up. Mr. Matt Morris, are you ready, sir? Thank you very much for escorting Mr. Marshall.
Well, Mr. Matamoros is escorting Ms. Marshall to her chair. I also want to point out that back on September 13th, right before we were being threatened by a hurricane, and we were putting out the message and asking folks not to put bulk waste out, not to put waste items on the curb, not to put their trash out. I actually drove around the city and had to report to Waste Connection that they actually had 277 households throughout the city that had bulk waste that hadn't been picked up, and they were actually supposed to be picking that up on a weekly basis. So this is not a new problem, and I will say that when I look at what the pictures that were taken prior to Ward B's pickup, and then driving around after it, the number of piles that are still out of compliance that didn't get picked up is an amazing change from what we had before. There is a problem, and we do need to get that communication out there, and code enforcement needs to help on those that, you know, that have things that are absolutely out of compliance, and if we can put together a group of volunteers that will help those elderly or disabled folks to apply. I know I have some teenage, or not actually, they're not teenagers anymore, but actually sent at home. They're always looking for community service.
Young Brimage, would you go ahead and open the doors, please, sir? Is it secure outside? All right, go ahead. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kelty. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. That's all I had to say.
All right, so, Mr. Matt Morris.
Mayor, Council, I know there are a lot of complaints. I'm here to maybe possibly think of one solution with the brush. Why don't we take the lead of Lake Jackson, create a brush center to where citizens can bring their brush, we mulch it, because I can't tell you how many hundreds of dollars I spend per year going to buy mulch, maybe mulch their limbs up, give it back to them for free, and allow them to get rid of that and not have to pay a fee. So,
Thanks, sir.
Hell, yeah.
Would you like to, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Pena, Councilman Pena, you had some further comments?
Yes. Thanks for all the feedback. I'm really glad that this discourse is occurring. But I'll tell you, this is a long discussion, but I'll tell you what, I'd rather give up an hour here tonight on this discussion than wait 30, 60 days for my trash to get picked up. Let me go on. There was a comment here made in the last couple of meetings, maybe you just made.
Hold on,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I just think that's a cheap political shot there. You're taking 30, 40, 60 days.
No, I'm basing that on trash that I've seen out that long, sir.
Have they complied with the rules that you agreed to when you signed up and voted for that contract?
That's the whole point of this, my
Yes.
next comment here.
Y'all settle down.
Let me also mention this. There's comments about this December 6th meeting, and actually, the discussion actually started occurring back in November, maybe even late October. The discussion then was, we have a problem with our trash company, we should probably start looking at other companies. And there was only one that came up, apparently. And I actually volunteered to be a part of that process, but my time constraints, actually, I was under the weather in the month of November quite a bit. I had a couple of COVID scares, fortunately I didn't have COVID. But that said, I guarantee you, you guys can probably all attest, if you have my attention, I'm gonna show up. Because I'm a gamer, I don't mess around, I do my homework, and I try to make sure that I bring up the points that are of importance to the residents. So I'll say this. We only had one bid, but I wanna also tell you what we had another problem with. We had a problem with Veola. We had a problem with Veola with the sewer and the drainage.
Mr. Pena, this is off topic.
No, it's not. It's actually relevant.
It's specific to the
It's
trash.
relevant.
If you wanna talk about the trash contract, we're not here to talk about the
It's
other.
relevant to my point.
And Mr. City Attorney, is this related to the item as we have this particular time?
Well, if you let me finish my point, you'll see that it's.
Well, you can't necessarily trample the rules to get to
I'm
your
not,
point.
I'm just germane, it's germane, I promise
So
you.
why don't you get to the conclusion?
Well, I'm trying to, but please do not rush me.
Well, I'm not rushing, I think it's apparent that I've given you a lot of time, but I wanna make sure we follow the rules. If I'm wrong, Mr. Duncan, am I wrong?
I will wrap that up.
I think that's basically the answer, Jeff, it's outside the scope of
It's
the
not.
agenda.
Here's my last comment then. You'll see it.
Okay.
Like Veola, there was only one bid. But guess what? We were on the precipice of dismissing them and looking for other ones. But instead, we decided, you know what, let's go back to them.
You know,
And let's
that
make sure
is outside.
that they change for us.
I'm calling you down, sir, that is outside of the discussion that's on the agenda item. If you wanna
Okay.
stick to the item with the trash
And then
contract,
here's the
sir.
last point.
Or, excuse me, let me finish. If you wanna go do your little Facebook thing and put out these comments, that's your business.
Yep.
But right now, we're talking about the trash contract. Please, sir, if you'd like to continue on that.
I will.
That's your pleasure.
Absolutely. That's what I was elected to do. And I make no apologies for it, Mr. Mayor.
I
Now,
understand.
that all said, it's not the other way around. We can adjust and we can learn, but the company needs to change for us, and they need to adjust to the customer, okay? And I'll also add that the big cans on Second Street, where the old community park, some of the neighbors there on Brazos Landing have complained to ask when those are gonna be picked up, so Mr. Kelty had asked that. And I also want to thank Mr. Matamoros for echoing my sentiment about mulch, having a mulch center. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, anybody else? Would you like to respond to any of that? As you're coming to the mic, let me say this. At least what I heard from the very beginning, an hour and a half ago, is that they were certainly willing to talk about potential revisions. And so, I will state that we have a contract, once again, that we all approved, and I'm sure we all read, and knew about the nuances, and we approved it 5-0. And yet, they're still willing to come talk to us about potential revisions because they're a successful company. And successful companies do good business practices. And good business practice is also working with your customer. And we are the customer. All right? So, I think, without hearing anything from Janelle at this particular point in time, which we're here for just a second, is that we brought, the citizens have brought a lot of comments, and we'll certainly talk about it. But you must understand, everybody, that we have a contract that we put in place. They can come in and say, "Tough luck, Freeport, we got a contract." But she mentioned the word revision herself. So we're gonna have that conversation. And I think there's some great points about, the mulch and the elderly. But I also think there's some great points about us getting together and working as a community to help each other out. I think those things are important, and we need to, because that is what the spirit of Freeport is, not this gosh darn division and angry, and, I mean, we are a solid people that stand up to help our neighbors. And we ought to be the shining example for all of Missouri County. With that, Janelle, do you have any comments or anything else you'd like to state, please, ma'am?
I was just gonna address, Councilmember Pena's last, question. The cans that are Ameriways cans, we're waiting on the, businesses. There's one apartment complex that is still a little bit under construction, waiting to deliver those cans. And then we have one tugboat company waiting. Waste Management has assured us that they would have the rest of their cans removed by the end of this week. To my knowledge, there are no other cans there.
Waste Management had the commercial contract on some businesses?
Individually, and when we set the Ameriways cans, we moved the Waste Management cans, and they've been coming and picking them up.
Thank you.
We're good?
Be expecting a phone call or sit down.
Tax season's over, my days are open.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there any action that anybody wants to make at this particular time, or have they discussed this enough? With that, we'll move on to number 6. It is now 8:14. I'll open up a public hearing in regards to public hearing discussion on the auto repair and service ordinance. Ms. Loman and Mr. Kelty.
Thank you, Mayor.
And remind everybody, this is no action tonight on this, it's this discussion only. We want to get feedback from the public, so thank you very much. Mr. Kelly.
So this public hearing is intended to provide the public and affected business owners the opportunity to give comment and feedback in regard to the proposed ordinance establishing guidelines regarding storage, parking, and repair of vehicles on automated repair, record service, and salvage yard businesses in the city of Freeport, where they store those vehicles outside of vehicle repair bays and or outside of screened vehicle repair yards in the public view. And I have included a copy of that ordinance in your packet, and Ms. Roman has assured me that they have actually been delivered to all of the businesses that are affected by this. And I'll just give you just a little background. Ordinance 2221-2641 was adopted by council on October 4th, 2021, and then rescinded on December 20th. The ordinance 2641 had put in place regulations similar to what are being proposed, but it was rescinded following outcry by affected business owners and because council wanted to get additional feedback on the issue before reconsidering the regulations. I thought that was important to council to do that. The original ordinance was sent out to all the affected businesses in late February. They were invited to submit written recommendations regarding the ordinance and were invited to a workshop that the city, that I held with the building official and Councilman Mariah and Kane. We got 2 written responses back that basically were that just said that we shouldn't do anything at all in regard to the ordinance, but we did have, I think, probably 4 to 5 business members in attendance at the meeting that we held with the 2 council members, and as a result of that meeting, we made several changes to the previously approved ordinance that I thought were helpful and lessened some of the burden on those businesses. And the changes that were included were, we changed the definition of repair bay to make sure that it was understood that it wasn't the number of garage doors. So in the ordinance it allows 3 cars to be parked outside per repair bay, but if the repair bays are long and fit 2 cars, that would actually be, that would increase the number of vehicles that they could potentially park outside. There was an allowance to make minor repairs outside, and we had some discussion about that. I think we got the language that will both work for code enforcement and for businesses to do what they ask to be able to do in regard to minor repairs. There was a prohibition of making vehicle repairs in the right of way. That was, I think that goes without stating, but we wanted to make sure we were clear with this. It excluded from the daily use vehicle count that they're able to have the number of vehicles that were used by employees for daily use and stored in public view. And then we also reduced the fines that the ordinance stated. Originally it stated fines could be issued up to $500, and there were concerns amongst business owners that they get fined, they're gonna get a $500 fine, and potentially multiple fines at the same time. But we went ahead and reduced that, to I think, 100 the first. 100 on the first offense, 250 on the second offense, and not to exceed 500 on the third offense. And again, those fines are determined by the judge, those are not to exceed fines in accordance with the ordinance. And so, again, we put this out there, but before I ask council to take action on it, I promise y'all that we have this public hearing and give those folks the opportunity to come and speak to you if they still have additional concerns or suggestions that ordinance can be further amended before it is presented to you for action if you so choose.
We have a comment, Mr. Matamoros, Ms. Roman, will you step aside, would you like to?
So, Mr. Kelty answered part of my comment. There's a tire shop off of Yellowstone, Macho Tire. They repair big rigs on the side of the road. And when you put the big rig plus the repair truck, it makes Yellowstone to a one-lane road. So I was wanting some, have that prohibited. Another thing is if these repair shops, if they would, especially that one, have a restriction of having those big trucks going through Avenue M, Avenue O, because I do see some of them, they'll go through those streets to get to that shop. So if we could maybe look into that also. Thank you.
Sir? Council, do y'all have any questions or comments on this, or I'd like to hear from
I have no comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, please, have you filled out?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they.
This will be item number 6, Betty, if you have it. I don't have that.
Yeah, like I say, auto repair, whenever we do make an ordinance, we gotta force to make it. They follow the rules. I just know to ordinance, looks like nobody follow. You can see in AutoZone on the side, it's a big shop, I don't know the name. A lot of times, a lot of cars are in the street, and it belongs to them to repair or whatever. But most of the times, it's at least 6 or 10 cars on the street. And most of the people, they do the same thing. But right here on the main street, it looks horrible. Just to comment, like I say, to force the ordinance. Don't park in the grass, nobody follow, and nobody force them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Was there somebody else that wanted to make a comment? Somebody to sign that? No?
Mr. Estrello.
Oh, yes, please, Mr. Strollo, I'm sorry, I never do my L's right. Straight.
It's simple, 2 L's, it's a Y in Spanish.
Why, I know.
2 L's means,
Lazy tongue.
okay.
Go ahead, sir.
First comment is, y'all are in a position of authority, we need to respect y'all, but to see the way you acted just now for the city council member, that is appalling to see that from our leaders. Now to the ordinances that were being thought about for the auto repair business, I think we ought to be left alone. We manage ourselves and we clean up, yes, we can clean up. But the other ordinance, you have no idea what it takes to run a business, a auto repair business. The parts are not available like they used to be. I've had to wait 4 months for a simple carburetor kit. My son had a new truck, lifters failed, the lift ship. He waited 6 months for 7 lifters. So the cars are piling up. It's impossible to just have the customer deliver the car or take it back to his house and back and forth. You fix one item, you get to another part, you find something else broken. So they're gonna pile up, and I think we're doing a service to the citizens of Freeport by repairing their cars. To have these ordinances just compounded on us, we don't need that. Just leave us alone, let us do our job.
Thanks, sir. Was there another one, Betty?
I don't have any more, Mr.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'd like to hear from Councilman Kane and Councilman Ryan. Go ahead, any thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mayor. What I was excited about in making the change was the fact that we included minor repairs being able to be done outside of the shop. Okay, when we first started this, that was one of the complaints. In fact, when we had a meeting, we were talking, and there was someone that had brought a trailer over and you had to work on it outside. And in doing this, it eliminates that issue. Yet it still keeps us from rebuilding engines and replacing transmissions outside. Okay. We have to understand that the main reason we're doing this ordinance is to clean this stuff up. We've spent an hour and a half or 2 hours today talking about trash on the roads, trash in front of our houses. This is right along the same lines. This is something that the city has to do to clean up. And I feel, Mayor, that we were fair with the shop owners. We had good discussion when we had the last meeting with them. And I think this is a win-win. That's right.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Wright.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy that we did manage to make some changes, specifically on the penalties. Something that's I know that the city has their own ways of doing things, but in this manner it shows that the city is lax, or not necessarily lax, but is not really restrictive either. We want to be pro business, and we want to make sure that we're hear out the mechanics' concerns, and we did that with the 2 workshops, so that was a good plus. The minor repairs on the outside, that was a plus as well. That was input that we received in that workshop, and that was a win for both. Moving forward, I know that there's a lot of complaints still from the citizens and mechanics. It goes both ways. All I can say for later on is, if the citizens want this repealed, they need to go vote for change your representatives. We're at this point because we want the citizens want to change. They got change, and we're gonna pass this or move forward with this ordinance. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else on council have any comments about? Ms. Nancy?
Yes, sir.
Hold on 1 second, please, ma'am. Anybody else have any councilman's opinion?
I have a couple of questions. I'm just curious, number one, when we had a meeting, I actually had the second meeting with the Councilman Mariah and the mechanics. There was about 20 business owners, and I'm just curious if we had buy-in from the majority of the business owners through this process. And that's a question for both councilmen.
At the last meeting that we had, letters were sent out to everybody, and Ms. Roman can add this in a second. But it's my understanding that we had 2 responses, both of which were rather vague, no specifics, which is what we were asking for. And ultimately, what do we have? Maybe 7 or 8 mechanics who showed up that day.
There was about 6. We actually had email addresses from the workshop prior, and I emailed every person that attended. We called them. We also hand-delivered invitations to the workshop and a survey, which listed what would you like to see changed, how would you change this to make it better. We asked for their feedback. We put several ways they could deliver it, either by mail, email to me. I mean, we really went the extra mile to try to get the feedback. And some gentlemen did come to that second workshop, and there was a lot of great feedback. But we really went the extra mile to try to reach out and give them the opportunity to speak back to us.
Jeff, I also want to say that I also had met with some mechanics that got their input on it as well. That's how we got to the fees or the penalties. There was other things that I had a list of that are on my phone that we discussed as well. I'd say that, you know, they gave me input, but they weren't excited. You know, that's not something that they want. So I just, you know, say it the way it is, that they're not happy about it. They feel like it was restrictive. It's restrictive on some ends still, and that's where we're at.
Thank you. Well, I like that it's a working model, and we had feedback from Mr. Estrella. He came out here tonight, and I know at the meeting that I was at, he was probably one of the more vocal leaders in the mechanic group. And so if Mr. Estrella was involved through that process, that gives me a little bit of peace of mind. But make no mistake about it, this was brought to me back in November. And this was a response to the ordinance that we passed. And then, of course, now we go back and do the feedback process. And maybe this is just a lesson for us that as we move forward, as we're looking at the trash and any other ordinances we're looking to implement that have fines and violation penalties, that we have this community outreach firstly, not put the cart before the horse. That said, my last comment or question is, with what's being proposed or what's been, I guess, acknowledged and accepted by this particular last hearing with the two councilmen and the council, the mechanic businesses, Ms. Rowan, I'm curious, do you already have an active working list of violators that aren't going to be compliant, that aren't going to be in compliance once this passes tonight, if it does?
Well, I don't think it's going to.
Maybe it's not for that, but I'm just curious.
We actually, we would start all over with a clean slate. We did start addressing things, talking to them, and taking pictures, but if the ordinance is passed, we would start that from day one. We have had many conversations with councilmen and our city attorney to work with them, give them a timeline. We would not walk out and start writing citations on day one.
Yeah.
That's not the intent of this at all. We individually ask them for a timeline, what is a reasonable amount of time that they can comply with. Each one will have a different, circumstance and different timeline, because some of them are already in compliance. There's a lot of our shops that have cleaned up and look wonderful.
Right.
You know, they've been proactive, they've really already tried to comply, and we've noticed that.
Yeah, no, I agree with the sentiment that Mr. Matamoros had brought up earlier. You know, you have some of these particular vehicles that are under repair, being on the street illegally. And so that overflow is a large concern, not only for Yellowstone, but throughout the city. Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Dancy, did you have something you want to say?
Yes, sir. I feel kind of how, Ms. Roman's handling this.
That, me and Nancy South Country, and these guys are just trying to make a living, you know, and I understand we're trying to clean up Freeport as well. But it's kind of like, you know, that day that I came over and showed you a picture of our pump station, and it was a total disaster. And, but anyway, that's a different story. But, I just think that, and I think she's doing a good job on this, because they are just trying to make a living. And mechanic shops are messy, you know? And, I just want everybody to keep that in mind, that they're citizens of our community trying to make a living. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, seeing no more public comment, council having no further questions, I will now close this public hearing at 8:32. And go to item number 7, consideration of possible action on ordinance number 2022-2663, approving the amendment to the 4-inch sewer tap ordinance. Ms. Ezell.
The revision to this ordinance would remove the fees in the ordinance and reference the master fee schedule. So we are moving the fees to them as ordinance, and we are making a change, which is on the next agenda item. to the master fee schedule. I have sent this to Mr. Duncan, and he has approved it to form that removing the fees, and then ordinance says, see master fee schedule, and then that way we can just change the master fee schedule rather than having to go in and change ordinance.
Why are we doing this now?
Because it wasn't done previously when it needed to be done.
When we established the process for the master fee schedule to remove all of those, that was one of those that was missed to be taken out and moved into the master fee schedule.
Yes. And so we want to be, come in compliance and move all our fees there.
Well, should we approve whatever the particular amendment that you're asking for before we?
The amendment to the ordinance is to change it to where it shows that the fees for these items are in the master fee schedule. And then the master fee schedule is a separate item to approve those charges.
Very good. Council, do you have any questions for Mrs. Zell? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve item number 7.
We have a motion from Councilman Kane to approve item number 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Bridge. Any further conversation, comments, or discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Councilman Pinion?
Mrs. L, I'm curious on this particular amendment to the 4-inch sewer tap ordinance. Explaining it, is this the 4-inch sewer tap that is, that's attached to the sprinkler system?
It was, that does attach.
Sanitary sewer.
Sanitary sewer.
Sanitary. So this is output, not input.
Yes, that is correct.
And what actual fee changes would that?
That
be
is,
for?
that's actually the next item.
There is,
This item here is just changing the language to say that the fees are reflected in the master fee schedule.
so this does not change the fees at all, it
No.
just puts the existing fees in the master fee schedule.
And we'll talk, change the fees in the next item.
On number 8?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Thank you, sir. With that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 8, consideration of possible action on resolution 2022-2745, amending the master fee schedule for water and sewer tap charges. So my question is the same, why are we doing it now?
Because again, this was when they moved the fees out, this was one that was missed and was left in the ordinance. So we're moving it to where all the fees are in one schedule, and it is easier for our citizens and it's easier for staff to go to one place rather than try to give the ordinance, and it gives it easier accessibility for council to change.
Well, I appreciate that. There's also a big, if I'm reading the memo correctly, it goes from $20 to.
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
that sewer tap, in the old ordinance, the fee for sewer taps was $20. Sewer tap is not $20. They adjusted the water tap fee, but they did not adjust the sewer tap fee at that time. So I asked Veola to give me a price of a standard 4-inch tap. Standard 4-inch tap costs $1,000 to make. So that is what we are requesting, the standard 4-inch tap fee to be is $1,000, and anything over and above will be just like with the water taps, anything over the standard 3/4 inch, we have to get a price on from Veola. Because it depends on the equipment that's needed, and the bores need, there's many different aspects that go into the taps.
So typically, this affects new development, when a new home is being put in, or new business is being put in, and requires that a tap be established, a new tap be established. There's a cost involved to do that. In most cases, that cost is the actual cost that is passed on to the person making the requested improvement. Making the requested improvement.
All right, council, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. Mrs. L, who will this actually affect?
And this will affect any new development that comes in, any new homes, any new business that requires new taps. This is what is affected, is the people that come in new and require new taps.
Mr. Garcia, for instance.
Mr. Garcia,
Question?
And his home buyers.
and, so it affects those because the city currently is only collecting $20 for the tap, but it's costing us $1,000.
We're not covering our costs.
We're not covering our costs.
Well, I like the idea that, or I guess I might be okay, I'd like to hear from Mr. Garcia. Because I always like to hear from the business community, because that's who's affected. And I also like to just hear from the community, because if this money come out of their pocket, where it wasn't before, I have to ask questions as to why we're charging more and getting less. So that said, I wanna say, to council and to the public here, my sense is, if this is for new development, I'd like to hear the commentary and the feedback from the business. If it's a remodel or a repurpose of a lot of our buildings here in the city, I'm a little concerned, because the majority of the development in our city is basically renovations.
In most cases, that would require a sewer retap.
If they did remodeling, they brought the sewer out of one side, and instead they're bringing it out of the other side, and they want to tap into the sewer in a different location, then that would be that. Now, if the
If
city,
they move the line.
yes.
If they move it on their side of the lot, they're okay, it's too.
Right. Now, if the city relocates the line or replaces the line, and as a result of that, we have to retap, that is on us.
Okay. That seems fair. Reasonable.
Yeah, so that is what it's for, because like I said, we aren't covering our costs for these new taps. And we are on the water side, but we just sort of wasn't updated at the time that they did the water.
Are there any other expenditures that are going up 400% like this on this master fee schedule change that you're requesting today?
Just this one, this is the one today. I haven't had a chance to look at the different fees to ensure that we are charging what we need to make, just break even. We're not even making money off of the sewer tap. This is a break even charge.
This is the only change to fees.
This is the only change to the fee schedule, and this fee has not been adjusted in 20 years. And for $20, it's just not feasible to do.
And I'm sure 20 years ago, the cost was more than that.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if any of the business owners, Mr. Garcia, had any questions or comments. I'm very curious to see what their thoughts are for new development.
I sure do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you guys know who I am. My name is Willie Garcia.
Kathy, would you take the mic to him, please?
Sure. Sorry.
My name is Willie Garcia. Legal name is Guillermo Garcia. I now live in Lake Jackson. I'm a lifelong resident of Freeport. And at the same time, I have been building homes in the city of Freeport for over 5 years now. As Mr. Brimmer says, I've invested billions of dollars in the city of Freeport, but to this time, the ones that are investing the money in the city of Freeport are the people that are buying my homes. I've been blessed to be able to, build a good home and be able to sell it quick. One of my questions is, how is this fee comparable to the other cities in the Missouri County?
I think Jackson charges $1,000 for a 4-inch sewer tap.
Okay. The builder is the one that's incurring this fee, and it's being passed on to the plumbing contractor that we already. So the city of Freeport is not incurring any of this fee as far as doing the work to get to that sewer tap. I'm sure Mr. Rivers could attest to that. He's also a builder. But as it is, the fees in the city of Freeport are much more expensive than they are in other cities that I've built homes in other cities, also not only in Freeport. And I hope to continue building homes here in the city of Freeport. But I think that that fee, the plumbing contractor is already, he's the one that's incurring that extra fee. Then, so he's gonna go up on my price. As it is, recently, and this didn't have anything to do with sewer taps. Recently, we've had some new things that were implemented into the package that the city of Freeport is requesting as far as engineering, load analysis, and some other things that, it's incurred, more expense on my part as a builder that, to be able to comply with the new rules and everything. We've talked about the mechanic shops, some kind of transition period for them to accept the new rules and things that are coming into effect. Actually, I was caught as one of the first ones to deal with these new rules that went into effect to be able to put this package together to be able to build a home. I will say that Ms. Roman's doing a very good job. Actually, she called me and complimented me last week on my package that I just recently put in for a new home. Like I told her, well, that package, that I put together, the new things in new engineering that I had to comply with, to be able to get my city permits to build homes here in the city of Freeport, cost me an extra $600 and stuff. And I was the first one, I believe, to get nailed with this package, this new expense that I wasn't expecting, which I had already given a quote to a new residents of Freeport as the expense. When I give it my cost, I wasn't expecting to, add on another $600 for engineering fees. But, we had asked Mr. Kelty in December and Ms. Roman for an example of the new requirements that they were asking for. And this was on December the 23rd, I believe. And recently, we never got those examples or anything. Ms. Roman did work with me, constantly, I'm constantly on the phone with Tim Kelty, or either I forward my messages that I send to Ms. Roman, to Mr. Kelty also and stuff. And, we have worked together.
Willie, let's wrap it up and get back to the comment on the sewer tap.
On the sewer tap.
And or the water.
This is added expense, that, the builders aren't gonna have to incur, and the contractor is gonna, increase my fees also. That's my comments.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
I did look up online, and Angleton's sewer tap, is the actual cost of the sewer tap. Food is $500. And as you say, Lake Jackson's $1,000.
Jackson is 1,000.
Mayor, I'd like to respond to Mr. Garcia's comments.
Yes, sir.
As I invited him to speak. Guillermo Garcia,
Yes.
welcome and thank you for your comment, and I applaud your humility, excuse me. I want to make this comment here because, as you guys may have read, as everybody here in the public has read throughout the county, either on the facts or recently on Facebook, we're trying to encourage residential development. And I'm thinking about the taxes that have gone up here on average for the average homeowner, and I'm wondering what percentage that was. I'm sure it was probably no more than 25%, otherwise we probably have rights. Yeah, but just think about the outcry that's occurring now. So 400% is a pretty huge step up, and I'm really glad that Mr. Kelty mentioned Clute. I wasn't aware of it if he gave $500, but I will tell you this, Clute sure does get a lot of development. And so I would, just to, I know we have extensive cover, it's a common sense person. I'd say we may need to extend a graduated increase so that maybe here out of the gate, we're not at 400%, maybe we get to the Clute level, and then, or maybe even half of that, maybe 250. What is that? A 100% increase, and from 25 to 250, and then maybe in another year. And I'm just wondering if that is the kind of thing that would help these developers. I think yes. I couldn't help to hear Mr. Garcia's comment that it's a bit of a sticker shock, and I think he made some sentiment that it's just a little bit discouraging then to come to Freeport. We want to encourage, we want to incentivize them. And if these are funds that might actually be gradually, these fees are to be extended, increased, I say to do it over a graduated period, much like we do a lot of the tax abatement programs, number one. But also, this makes for a great opportunity for the EDC to potentially include this in part of their grant program too. So I just want to mention that, just making sure that we are utilizing city funds and tax dollars that can help incentivize and assist the interest in developing, and for that matter, investing in the city of Freeport. That's all I have. Thank you.
One of the things that Mr. Garcia also said was that cost is unfortunately just passed on to the homeowner, the property, that's buying the property. So if we were doing that, if the EDC wanted to give that grant, that would actually, end up being either given to the developer with the assurance that it's not going to be passed on, or ultimately to the property owner, if you so chose to award those.
If I may, this is the utility fund. This is the utility fund. Your utility fund is still operating out of deficit.
Well,
I'm just.
As of the end of.
As of the audit statement. So part of looking at everything, we just raise rates, but we're still trying to get these fees up to comparable, to try to get different ways to bring revenue into this fund without continuing to raise everyone's rates. But I just want that, council to be mindful, this has nothing to do with the general fund tax dollars. This is in the utility fund.
And in regard to that, as based on the statements by the auditor tonight, that fund was running at a slight deficit. We have made changes though that have improved it. No longer is it being subsidized by the general fund, which is huge because in the past it had been subsidized as much as $1 million in the general fund. Now it is acting truly independently, and it's only running a slight deficit. The other thing I'll point out is that the rate increase that lasted out after the council was going into effect in August, and so would not have had that impact on last year's budget. So we are hoping that under this year, as long as we remain focused, and we will be able to start building that fund balance. We were showing the fund balance, but most of that is because of the bond. You can't really count that towards your fund balance reserve requirement policy that you all passed, 120 days. So it is going to be imperative that we build that fund balance. And this is not a huge way to build it, but it keeps us from going in the wrong direction, when we have, when we're so far upside down in our costs versus versus what we actually charge for the service that we provide.
Kathy, in regards to this fee that we got from Veola, I mean, is there any, there's some contractual markups?
No.
In our agreement, but you're saying this is the actual
This is the
cost.
actual cost just to do this.
Do they do the work themselves, or they
This, they would do the work themselves. It's only when you get into the bigger ones where they have to do the bigger taps with the boards and different things that we would contract it out. And those are based on actual costs. We pass that cost on to the developer.
And when you do a sewer tap, the sewer is in the alley. Is it in the alley or is it on one side or the other? If they had to do a bore.
They would let me know because then it's no longer.
One side is more expensive than the other.
Then they would let me know because it's no longer a standard 4-inch tap.
Okay.
So they would have to let me know if there was any special concessions or any special work that would have to be done, and that would be passed on. That's what we do with the water taps. If they have to bore the other side of the road, we pass 100% of that cost off to the person paying for the tap.
The $1,000 charge for it, is this something that has just recently gotten to 1,000, or is it something that we've been living with for a while?
It's something we've been living with for a while, and we just haven't adjusted the rates.
$20?
The $1,000, that's something that we've been living with for a while because we haven't adjusted that $20 fee.
$1,000 cost.
Yes, the $1,000 cost.
And the other question I might have, says the cost of the sewer tap larger than 4 inches will be based on the actual costs, size, and location of the tap.
Correct.
How much more typically would be?
It's gonna depend on what has to be done. I've seen like a 4-inch water tap be $3,000 over here, but it's $9,000 over here because they have to bore under the road and make a bigger one on the road. So it just depends on what work has to be done.
Councilman Kane, the site I looked at, I didn't look at the clue, so the site I saw on Lake Jackson, it was like $500 increments.
But the thing to remember is they have in-house water service. We outsource. So our prices are a little bit different because we outsource.
All right, council, any further questions?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Kelty, help me understand what you said a second ago. You said when it was in the general fund, there was $1 million deficit, but when it was placed independently, it was a wash. Can you help explain that language?
I'm sorry,
Maybe I misunderstood you, but you said when this particular expense was being paid through the general fund, it was a $1 million basically deficit.
Yeah.
But then when it was placed on its own,
Okay.
it was a wash. Help me understand that, Matt.
No, actually, in past year's budget, starting, I started in 2018, the budget that was adopted prior to my getting here, the utility fund was actually being subsidized by the general fund. There was a transfer from the general fund for operations of the utility because of the fact the the utility was operating at a deficit, we weren't bringing enough money in to actually pay for the operations of the utility. The utility fund as an enterprise fund is supposed to be independent and self-sustaining, as its own kind of nonprofit operation. But it was not. It was actually being subsidized, and there was one year, I don't know whether it was 2018 or 2019, that we actually transferred $1 million from the general fund into the water sewer fund to keep it, funded, adequately funded. And the reserve balance that we were carrying at one point, when Stephanie was here, was about $25,000. It's required to have, by the policy that we adopted, we need to establish a 120-day reserve fund.
In regards to the utility fund.
In regards to the utility fund. We realized when we adopted that policy, we were not there. We did the rate study, we adopted rates to move us in the direction of establishing that fund, even though we knew that it was gonna take 3 to 4 years to actually establish that policy required reserve. So the first step was to remove funding from the general fund. The second step was to start funding capital projects out of the utility fund by itself. And the third thing was to start building the reserve. So when we adopted, since I've been here, we adopted a 10% increase the first year, and then after we did the rate increase, we did a 12% increase and an 8% increase. That 8% increase has not yet, did not affect last year's fiscal year that we heard from the audit tonight. So when that does in fact, when we get to realize those revenues for the entire fiscal year 21-22, we should see us move into black as an operational unit for the utility. Now, are we gonna be in the black far enough to build the reserves, and are we gonna be in the black enough to plan for capital projects? We actually are not. Our capital projects right now we did a bond, if you recall, for $5 million. Those are over the next 3 years are capital improvements. We actually need to generate, the utility has to generate money in and of itself to fund capital improvements. And so in the long term, that's what the direction we're trying to move the utility into. So that's how, from a math standpoint, that's what we're.
So are you also suggesting then that going forward, that to supplement the shortages of the utility fund, that the general fund cannot be used, or we could still go back to the general fund to?
No, it cannot.
As a policy, as a law,
as Mr. Duncan, legally.
Legally, it can be done, however, it's not recommended, because then you're taking money from the general fund that you would use to fund police salaries, fund equipment, and the general fund side, you're taking away that money to fund the utility fund, which should be self-sufficient, and that's the goal, is that you make it self-sufficient so it can pay for itself and its capital improvements.
That's the intent of every water utility that I know of.
Yes.
Water and sewer utility that I know of, that they remain independent from the general.
So I like these rules, I like these ideas, I like these explanations, but what I wanna make sure is that we make sure we have a solution that's unique to Freeport. And I'm just shooting from the hip here, right? I'm not a city manager, I'm not a finance director, but I can tell you, what I'm thinking is, you pay one bill, and you try not to hurt yourself on another side. So I can appreciate we need to make sure that the fund is self-sufficient. But until we get there, I'm not sure it makes prudent business sense as a city to penalize one particular group here in the city. More importantly, it might stifle additional residential development. So I just say that we use caution. I'm not for the $1,000 increase. I'll just reiterate, this makes my point that we need to go graduating, because we need to be sensitive to making sure that we don't lose people like Mr. Garcia. And then the many others we're trying to attract. I've never met Mr. Garcia. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, before we move on, as Mr. Garcia said, I am a builder, and this will affect me financially, so I'm going to remove myself from the vote.
All right, we have Councilman Greenwich removing himself from the vote in regards to a potential conflict.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question.
Yes, sir. Would you take the microphone, please?
So my understanding, if we can clarify this, the Veola is, gonna be the one putting in the sewer taps from now on. The contractor, the subcontractor's not gonna do it.
The plumber runs the line to the tap and Veola taps the line.
Okay, because in the past, the plumber was running the line all the way to the sewer line, and he was responsible if the sewer line, the main sewer line of the city of Freeport caves in because of the age, the contractor was responsible to repair that. So, because right now, I'm paying my plumber $800 to tap into the city's sewer line.
So in regard to that, that's never been legal in any city that I've ever worked in. For where a private contractor will be working for themselves or working for the home builder to actually mess with the utility water line or the sewer line.
Well, we can go back into.
We tap into every one of them. The Veolia does not. Well,
No.
for all these years, we've tapped into our own. We paid for it. Yeah,
And
that's
we
why.
paid our subcontractors for that. So that's what I'm saying, I wanna clarify this, the city of Freeport and Veola they're gonna give us a line, a 4-inch line to go to. We're not gonna have to go 18 feet down and tap into our own sewer line.
That is correct.
So it's gonna save us $800 or
We're gonna
$1,000.
save, yeah, we're gonna
it
save,
is.
so it's actually gonna cost us only $200.
Right.
Correct.
Cause now, Veola's gonna be the one responsible to tap in, and they're the ones gonna be responsible, if that sewer line caves in on them, they're taking care of it.
That is
Yes.
correct.
So that $20 fee that we were talking about, you know, that's all the city was paying for. They were not paying this $1,000 that we're talking about. They were paying the $20 because I was paying the plumber the $800 to get to there and tap in.
Yes, he will not do
Mr.
that.
Grimmett, am I correct?
You're correct.
But it's not gonna happen anymore.
Okay.
That's already been done with.
What I'm saying, but we haven't been losing, like he's saying, we have not been
No, we
losing
haven't been losing.
that money all these years because we've been paying for it.
Now
There'll be
now you
savings
actually
in addition to that.
probably take yourself more liability on Veola.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so that is a clarification.
That was a good clarification. Thank you, Willie and Councilman Goodrich. Is there any further comments on this? If not, I'll call the question and entertain a motion.
We got one question. Well, we got, you call this, we got, I make a motion to approve agenda number 8.
We have a motion from, Councilman Kane to approve agenda number 8 with the $1,000 sewer tap fee with the understanding that we, with the discussion that we've had. Is there a second? I will second that since, Councilman Brimage is, abstaining from this particular vote because of potential conflict of interest.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Take a vote. So, Mr. Garcia, did I understand when you said it's gonna cost you an extra $200 and not $1,000? Did I understand that correctly? Being that you're going to the line and not down to the tap?
I'm not exactly sure what that fee's gonna be, because I have to deal with my contractor, my subcontractor, and find out now that he's not gonna have to go 18 feet down or 23 feet down to tap into the main sewer line, because Veola's gonna give us a 4-inch line that we connect to, you know, so his fees are gonna change. So I can't say it's gonna be 200 or 300 or whatever.
Or the line.
I was paying 800 prior to this, and we were tapping into that line. We were going down, you know, to tap into the city line and stuff. I don't know, you know, Mr. Kelty, you know, you weren't part in on this conversation before you came in to be the city manager, but Mr. Brimage and I both understand that, you know, we were tapping into the line. We were the ones responsible if anything happened. So I can't tell you it's gonna be $200, but, you know, I'm ballparking it, you know, because he's gonna run a 4-inch line to wherever Veola puts it where I can connect to.
And they also would not have the liability of tapping into a sewer line that could collapse
Or repairing it.
or repairing it if it does.
Nor have we been losing $1,000 per tap for the last 30 years like we thought either.
That's your question, sir?
Now say it again.
We have not been losing that $1,000 a tap because the builder's been doing it. The builder's been paying for it, not the city. So the $20 was, you know, maybe you go from 1,000 to 200.
So say we pass this at 1,000. Who's gonna pay the $1,000? Is it gonna be?
The city of Freeport's gonna pay it to Veola.
Mr. Garcia, or is it gonna continue to be the citizens of Freeport?
If, with the changes that we've made, $1,000, if we do not raise the fee, the city will be paying, the citizens of Freeport will be paying the $1,000 fee for everyone.
Whoever's building a house will have an additional cost.
Yeah.
Now, if the builder reduces his cost because they don't have to put the sewer line into the tap, but then they reduce it there and then they add additional $1,000 tap fee, then, that's gonna
Yeah,
be.
but right now, the way it was being done, the contractor was paying to go in and do all the work. That's not gonna happen anymore. The city is going, Veola is gonna do the tap and on the city side and give it to where they can tie into the line. So the city is going to expense that part of it. Either it's covered by the fee, by raising the fee to $1,000, or the water rates have to subsidize it.
The city will have $1,000 fee from Veola for the sewer tap fee. Whether you pass that on to the developer, who passes on to the homeowner or builder, or the home buyer, will be up to them. Now, and then when they do, there also hopefully expect to be some reduction on their part because they're not having to do the work anymore.
With that, Mayor, I would like to amend my motion.
Yes, sir.
I would like to amend it to go to a $500 fee. We'll do it in increments, and maybe next year, the year after that, revisit it.
All right, I will certainly second your amended motion. Any further comments or questions on that?
Yeah, Mayor, I have one,
Yes, sir.
this comment. So it looks like what we're doing is we're tackling two situations here. The fee and the process. I don't like them being bundled up together, because they've got a little confusing here tonight. But now that it's clear that, at least in terms of who's gonna be touching tapping the lines, the sewer lines that are owned by the city, and I like the idea of Veola doing it consistently and exclusively versus who knows how many different plumbers touching those pipes and creating potential risks of damage at the expense of the city, or going through some kind of legal bonding insurance claim against these builders who might be unscrupulous. I like the graduated approach. I don't know if there are comments or questions.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Wright, have anything?
No, that was good.
All right, very good. We have a motion on the floor, which if I understand, it's an amended motion to move the cost up from $20 to $500 with the understanding that it will be increase the next year, or did you say gradual?
A gradual increase.
Till we get to the actual cost.
Cost of.
Understanding that potentially in 2 years it could be $1,200 for the actual cost versus $1,000. Okay, with that in mind, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Betty, please, make it for the record that Councilman Greenwich abstained from the vote. Item number 9, consideration of possible action on approval of residential street lighting plan for 2022 street light additions. Mr. Kelty.
Yes, so CenterPoint will install up to 50 new street lights per year in residential areas of the city at no cost, no charge to the city. For those installations, the city then would be responsible for paying for the monthly electric bill for lights installed annually. The city pays, actually, I was a little bit off, and the new number is $107,000 a year for all the street lights in the city. There's a concern that the city's dark and not well lit, so we are trying to take full advantage of this opportunity from CenterPoint. I sent out a map to each of you to show the existing street lights locations, and based on the map, the recommendations that staff has regarding adding those 50 lights for this year to the city. Ultimately, there's identified on the map additional locations for street lights, and then once those are done, or whatever you all decide, I think that probably there's going to be significant more streetlights that are needed. This list also, in addition to those 50 that are on the map, there are 3 additional lights on one on two on Broad and one on Second Street to help light up that area on the east side of, the downtown, between the downtown and, Pine Street. And those actually have a cost, of $2,400 for those 3 lights. And then an additional cost of about $10,000 a year in electrical cost for the lights that we install, those 50 lights that we install. So you have the map in there, I'm not sure, it's not in the packet, but is there any question or comment or change that you'd like to see? If you do want to do something other than what we have in here, just remember that we will have to remove anything you might move. If you want to add additional locations, unless you want to have us pay to have those lights installed, and we did not have that budgeted.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the map as provided by the city administration. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilman Kane. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I did want to make some changes
Yes,
to some of the lights. I had 5 that are placed between North Avenue, I believe that's Q, all the way to North Avenue U. Those 5 I would like to place in different sides of, or different areas of town.
Do you want to add 5 to North
No,
Avenue?
no, those 5 there that you have as potential in blue,
There's actually 3 on North Avenue Q.
or well, for Ward C, which would be between Yellowstone and Varner.
All right, I'm confused. Is what's blue and what's red and what's yellow?
Oh,
In
blue is
map,
the
yeah,
one.
Blue are the ones that are being recommended.
All right, what's red?
Red are potential future locations.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, Councilman Wright, you're referencing Avenue Q between Yellowstone and Varner. You want to move that one, sir?
Yeah, there's 5 blue dots that go from North Avenue Q to North Avenue U between Yellowstone and Varner.
I see, okay.
Yes, if I could have those moved to, I wanted 3 to go in the 1700 block, which is pretty dark and it's heavily condensed with, where, you know, there's a lot of houses there.
Which street?
I'll list them down. 7th between Dixie and Yalpon.
7th between Dixie and Yopon?
Yes, sir. There's a red dot there. That's a potential.
There's one there.
And then the 6th between Dixie and Yalpon.
Okay.
And then there's 5th along the same the other 2 dots. There's a 5th Street between Dixie and Yalpon. I know that there's a second one, but that would go to that little sidewalk. That's not the one I want to indicate. The other one I want to indicate the one that's at northern up to 288 on 5th.
So I've got 4 identified. 1 on 7th Street between Dixie and Yopon, 1 on 6th Street between Dixie and Yopon, and 2 proposed on 5th Street between Dixie and Yopon. Is that correct?
No, just one. The one
Just
that's
one between
yeah,
Dixie and Yopon?
yeah, just the one that's closest to 288.
The one closer to Dixie?
Or yeah, Dixie, my bad.
Okay.
Yes. And the other 2 I would like on North Avenue D. It'll be Old River Road.
Hold on, go back. North Avenue D. Okay.
Let me kind of get the map real quick. Yeah, it'll be between the intersection of North Avenue D and Old River Road, or will it be? It'll be the. And it's a little. Let me point it out to you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. So here's Old River Road and Avenue D. This one right here. Okay, Avenue.
And then this one right here.
This one here.
All right, Ms. Kelly, would you call those intersections off, please?
Yeah, so he's looking at actually Avenue D and Old River Road.
Okay.
and one on Old River Road between Avenue B and Avenue C. In addition to the three you mentioned between Dixie and Yopon.
Council, do y'all follow that, perhaps? Yes. All right. Any further discussion? If not, I'd ask Councilman Pena if you're willing to amend your motion for Councilman Mariah's request amendment.
I'm happy to include the changes that Councilman Mariah has made to that.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll still say.
All right, we have a second. Any further conversation? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
We'll get that submitted to Senate one tomorrow.
And you've got those corrections correctly on your document.
Yes, sir.
Good. Item, that brings us now, ladies and gentlemen, to item number 10. This was a discussion on Tim Kelty's job performance with a question mark. Councilman Mariah, I think, requested this with Councilman Pena being the secondary sponsor. Councilman Mariah.
Yes, I would like to send this to executive.
You'd like to ask this to be placed on executive session?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct, sir? Mr. Kelty?
Let me go ahead and meet it in open session.
Sorry?
We can go ahead and meet it in open session.
All right, generally it's up to the employee to have the request to go into executive session to keep it in open session. Therefore, Mr. Kelty, you have said what?
In regard to the discussion they had with council, there were a series of a couple meetings. I presented to council.
So I want to make sure for the record, you're asking that it be kept on open session?
Yes.
All right, very good. That was the request, correct?
Yes.
All right. For our policy. Okay, go ahead, sir. So it's an open session, Councilman Mariah. It's y'all's motion, what would you like to say?
Well, yeah, in regards to the job performance that occurred a while back, a few weeks ago, I do think that the process that we went with was a little. It was just. It really didn't get down to what we should have. I think a job performance review should, list things as far as what we can do better, not a, guilty, not guilty verdict. And that's the, that's the reason not why I went with the majority, and that we could improve intention, but I do think that there's things that we can do better, correctively, just in general. Those are my comments with regards to the job performance review.
And that's a request was on the agenda, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. That was my intention.
Okay.
Just clarifying. I think that we can do, more. When you say job performance, it should be a job performance, analyzing, discussion, bringing up ideas of what we can do better, and then going forward. But guilty, not guilty verdict, I think that was, I wasn't expecting that. That was a good good throw, a good hard ball.
I think my job evaluation is scheduled for August.
Right.
My annual evaluation.
Let me respond to that real quick. Okay. 10 minutes, you can do what you want, or ask Councilman Mariah. Ladies and gentlemen, we do an annual process, it's generally in August, where we look and submit forms to each of the council members that put forth their position and how he's done, how he's met certain goals and set future goals and so forth. That's what we normally do in August. That's in my opinion, a job performance review. What we did a month ago was respond to particular accusations made against Mr. Kelty, and we gave him the opportunity to prepare and respond. It was not a guilty, not guilty. It was to look at those and see whether or not we believe it or not. This is not a courtroom. Nobody's charged with any criminal offense. Passport facts. Nobody was charged with any criminal offense. I'm saying that twice. But there were allegations and accusations that were made that the council thought were serious enough that we needed to address. So let me say, it will be a job performance in August, which is the typical time of the year that we do that. And this was in a specific response, and council came out of executive session with their statement that was publicized and approved 4-1. Councilman Pena.
Thank you, Mayor. when I sent this particular agenda item to, the city manager, I was assuming it was gonna be an executive session, but so here we are in open session. And the reason why I, assumed it was gonna be an executive session, because that's been the nature of these discussions so far. But more importantly, I know since that last, meeting where we had the vote, the vote was 4-1, I made it, but I want to make sure that we're clear on, I know that there was an open records request by the facts to inquire as to whether or not the information that was discussed per that review is in the public domain here now, and if we're free to discuss it since now we are in open session. And I would presume so.
I think, unfortunately, as it was requested, and I'll certainly ask Mr. Duncan for his opinion, as I have some concerns about, we have sent off an Attorney General request, but once again, this was placed on the agenda by council. And if you recall, there's been some conversation about the agendas. We passed specific laws, and by God, we're gonna put it exactly as it's requested, so that's what was done.
No, I understand that.
So I think unless Mr. Duncan says otherwise, I think it's out in the public eye.
Okay, so then basically,
Unfortunately so.
yeah, so we can talk about everything that we talked about at the last review.
That's what you want to do, sir.
Well-
What's your intent by seconding this, from Councilman Moran?
Well, I don't want to editorialize anybody else's thoughts and ideas and motives, but I'll definitely make clear what my intention was. On the day that we voted, on the day of the review, and here
I
tonight.
did have a question, Mr. Duncan, first before you start, in regards to your initial question.
Oh, the question you posed to him was not my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
But if he wants to answer any questions that you.
I thought you asked a question, because you said you got the Attorney General opinion.
Well, I thought you just made it clear that it was open, that it was good.
I'm not the city attorney.
All right. So again, I guess I'll ask the legal question as a formality here.
Okay, so, the agenda item has been put in open session. It's up to, I guess, I don't know if because all of this discussion held in the executive session was already considered and reviewed, I don't know that it's,
Mike, please.
yeah, since the matters that were discussed and reviewed, I think it's at the council's pleasure whether it went to, further review. But any discussion now in open session would make the AG's opinion moot, not moot, if it's discussed.
And once again, just regards to the particular agenda item, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
It says discussion on Tip Kelty's job performance response. The made response made by Councilman Kane and seconded by, I can't recall who. Is that the response we're talking about? Because this quite frankly confusing.
Don't know how to tailor the dialogue to fit in the box that you're posing. I understand the box that you are creating.
Do you understand the box that was created by this specific request?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's clarity by the attorney and yourself, and for that matter, I'll use as much prudence and logic to fit in that box to have this discussion. All my point I want to make is that in terms of the performance response by the council, I want it to be understood that that performance review did not include, was supposed to include, I tried to get it in there, about 14 other items that I thought rose to the level of concern that did not allow us to have the luxury and good faith to wait till August. And I still hold that position, and I still maintain that. And if we're going to put this in, if the Attorney General should decide, and I'll go ahead and say that I won't get into the details of the Attorney General decision, other than to say that the last item, there were 6 items at the juncture of that particular meeting a month ago. 5 of those have been addressed. And so it was premature to make that statement that we had covered everything. But that last one was the one that was regarding the Lucy Ware property. And that one, we still have not vetted out. So in fact, the review is not complete. And so in addition to the 14 that I wanted to address last month, there's that and the 6th one as it relates to Lucy Ware's request for that property and her public information request. That's my comment here. I won't take any additional action or But I want to make sure that I just give notice that I will be making that request again on the agenda, so that we are thorough, because I do believe that the issues that I outlined rose to the level of concern for the city. Thank you.
And so what are you asking, Councilman?
Well, you asked me what my comment was to this particular agenda item, and I just gave you my response.
Okay, I'm
Thank
sorry, I
you.
thought
No,
you
you're fine.
were asking for an agenda item, so, okay.
No,
very
you're
good. Mr. Kelty, would you like to respond, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Like I say, after, there was a couple of meetings where allegations were made. You know, initially there were 2, and then there were 12, and then Councilman Pena included a list of additional ones. And as a result of that, you know, I presented to council a book, my responses to all those, where I could show that the allegations were false, were unsubstantiated, or were unfounded. And I appreciate that council's, as a body as a whole, response to that. But, you know, since this is back in the open session, I would like to go ahead and, in the interest of transparency, I will go ahead and make this document that I presented to council as public information in open session, and I will be willing to answer any questions in this regard. I know it was passed out, and you guys still have those copies, so.
Very good. We have Mr. Matt Morris wants to speak on item number 10, sir.
Mayor, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Odom, item number 10.
I'll pass for now.
Ms. Dancy wants to speak on item number 10.
Yes, sir.
Please, ma'am. I'm just gonna check you off on everything next time.
Well, honest to God, Pam Dancy, Front Street. I'm not here to ruffle any feathers, that's not the point. The point is that I didn't paint these pictures. And since speculation had been out there, I want, when somebody says, hey, Pam, did you hear this? I can say, hey, that's not the truth. You know, that's only what I'm here for. Because it looks so funny, like you bought a house, Mr. Kelty, when Troy was mayor. So that just looks funny. I didn't paint these pictures, but these are things that people say. You know, well, then maybe there's a handout or something like this. Hell, heck, I don't know, because I didn't paint the picture. But that's the stuff that happened that people have questions about. And even, you know, the stuff I was talking about when your mom told me to get out of her face. But anyway, but on this, my whole thing is it's the picture that the city has created at times to make it look funky, even though I'm sure nothing went wrong. You know, you guys didn't do anything wrong, but it's never been answered.
It actually has.
But Pam, all I ask is that y'all get on with it. Call whoever you want. The Texas Rangers will help you. The FBI will help you. Get on with it. Do it.
You're still blaming me.
But don't keep talking about it. Do it.
See, that's not right
Dancy,
either.
wait.
That's okay, because that's not
Do
right.
it.
His whole family thinks I'm a bitch, and that's not right.
Do it.
Hey,
That is not where I'm going with this.
Wrong lady.
I am not accusing you.
I'm saying get to the bottom of it, though. You are accusing me.
No, sir, I did not accuse you.
Ms. Dancy?
And put that on record, or I'll put something in the paper. That is not correct, and you should stop that.
I've been trying to the last 5 minutes. No, ma'am. Ms. Brimage, please, ma'am. Keep order. We'll have order, or I'll shut this down, because I want to go home. And I do have that power if you want to look in the charter and cancel the meeting. Very good. Mr. Kelty, excuse me. Let's see. Mr. Kelty, do you have any further response?
I will just say for the record, that Mr. Brimage had a house listed, on the internet for sale for an asking price. I offered the listed price of the property. He sold it to me for the listed price of the property. It was actually, I needed a bigger house because I have
Look,
9
his
people living in
family
my house.
is
Miss
talking to
Dancy,
me.
please
Forget
sit
it.
down.
I'll take it to court. His family
Miss
does not
Dancy,
need to look at me.
please sit down.
No,
You've
Mr.
done
Judge.
well. I'm not a judge. I'm just the
You're a
mayor.
mayor, but his
I
family
am,
is making
you just,
y'all.
Mrs. Dancy, you just said Mr. Kelty responded to it. Thank you.
Take me to jail right now.
No,
Well, you have not done anything against
Take
the
her
law,
outside.
ma'am.
I didn't paint these pictures, I'm just asking questions, not accusing anybody.
I think that.
But hell, you know what? We thought Bill Cosby was a good guy, right? That's right, I'll say whatever damn thing I want.
Was I just compared to Bill Cosby? Or was that Mr. Kelty? I hope it was Mr. Kelty. But anyway, folks, that's an inappropriate response. I apologize. You have a right to speak your mind. This is your council, but please follow the basic dignities and decorum. There's a time and place for protest and loud talk, but this is not it, especially when Mr. Kelty was trying to answer the question. With that, Mr. Kelty, you have anything else you want to say?
No, sir, thank you.
Council, is there anything else you want to say in regards to item number 10? Councilman Ryan, we good?
Yeah, just I know Mr. Kelty said they were false and they were unsubstantiated, but still, my belief in that was that there was events, there was a list like he mentioned, but my feeling was that you can improve intention. There was a lot of issues there, but I'll leave the rest to the Attorney General.
Thanks, sir.
That's it.
All right, with that, we will move on to item number 11. This is another requested agenda item. And since we decided and voted on that we're gonna put it exactly as it's requested, the request was attorney performance review. I don't know if that calls for discussion or if it calls for action, but that's what it was requested and that's what was listed. Mr. Pena, I think, actually was the sponsoring, was the initial request of this, and Mr. Councilman Rye was the second. So, Councilman Pena, do you have some questions or comments on the attorney performance review?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, as I reiterated or mentioned on item number 10, I was under the assumption that this was going to be an executive session for our discussion at the last meeting. So when I made the request, I did not put the literal language of executive session. So I'd like to move that, make a request to move that to executive session, please.
We have a request to move this into discussion into executive session. Mr. Duncan, do you have a response?
I'll wait to see what the council's preference is.
All right, council, is there a preference?
Yeah, I'd say we'll go to executive session.
All right,
I'd like to ask why we go to executive session. It's put on open session. People need to know, Chris is a contractor. He's not a city employee. We didn't put the waste on in the executive session.
Is there a question that you have for Mr. Duncan in regards to his employment status?
I would love for Mr. Duncan to answer the allegations. I'd love for Mr. Duncan to address the Melanie Owen statement that was notarized and that she came up here and gave her statement to the council. If this happened to any one of you guys, you wouldn't be sitting down. You wouldn't allow it. Our city attorney has caused disruption in the city. We cannot operate on a daily basis anymore with him. His time here is done. And we have to move on. He's not effective anymore.
Mr. Duncan, I ask you again. You have a pleasure, sir.
And I want to submit everything that I submitted that's here tonight in the public.
I think that, unfortunately, based upon the request, that is probably something that could potentially happen, but they might need to ask the city attorney for that.
Okay. Well, I don't have faith in the city attorney.
Well, he is our city attorney, and legal questions need to go to him.
Okay.
I'll reiterate, the council can decide if they want to do it in open or closed, and I'd be curious to see what the preference of the council is. I think we only heard 2 people or 3 people.
Mayor, my question would be, what was discussed last week in executive, could it be, if it was brought up in public today, would that be against the rules, or?
This is a very slippery slope.
That's
All
my
right.
concern.
I will tell you frankly that I wish that neither one of these items were placed on this agenda. And I will also state that I was the one at the last meeting that asked that it be re-agended, Mr. Duncan's performance review to be re-agended. I asked it, nobody else did. I also then instructed as mayor, which is my right, to remove that item because I'm the one that asked it. And now it's back on. So, I think that there is a possibility, once again, I will tell you that I'm not the city attorney, I am a lawyer who happens to be the mayor. So Councilman, Mr. Duncan, do you have an answer for Mr. Councilman King?
Well, this is part of the reason that I said I'd rather go with hear what the preference of the, city council is, because this item affects me. You can have some folks that might question what my legal advice is regarding, because it's specifically pertaining to me. So I would think that if the council, going step by step, if the council says we would like to have it in executive session, then that would make my advice would not be necessary. If the council decides, hey, they do want to go into executive and keep it an open session, then I can provide an answer. But once again, I think some people may believe what I say and some may not. So I think the safest course is to just go ahead and first decide from council what their pleasure is.
We're having a discussion at this time. Mr. Manmore, do you have a statement you'd like to make since you're on this? And Ms. Nicole? Or no, Ms. Mellon. No, Ms. Nicole's number 11. Yeah, 11.
Mayor, here's a quick question here. By inviting the commentary, are we basically by default going into an open session?
I don't think so. If I'm going into executive session, yeah, I want to hear what the public says before I go in.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to hear what everything is, but my comment real quick is, we always are on city council preaching transparency. And if you take it to executive session, where's that transparency going to be if the public can't hear this? And if it's deemed important to be in an executive session, it's probably deemed important to be in public session because we are the electors of y'all. And so we should be able to have an informed opinion when it comes time to our next elections. So, thank you.
Sir. Melanie Odom? Oh, you?
I spoke.
Okay. No, she was gonna.
Are y'all in open session?
Yes, we're not in executive. This is open session, and you put down that you wanted to speak on council agenda item number 11. I'm sorry. You spoke, you wrote down that you wanted to speak on council agenda number 11, and we are in an open session at this point.
Okay. I already spoke, but.
Okay. Very good. Is Nicole still here?
No, she's not.
Ms. Music, if you want to speak in open session, I'll change your form on number 11. You please come up.
Marion Music, 130 Allen Road. What I have to comment about is when I served on the economic development, I had to work with Chris on trying to come up with a lease for my business. My sister and I and her fiance, boyfriend, whatever it is, had multiple conversations about that lease. And we were told repeatedly not to worry about the lease with EDC, not to worry about paying rent right now because it had not been determined. I was asked to sit out of those meetings in executive session during EDC when they talked about it, and later found out and was told by other parties there was no reason for me to be removed out of earshot of what was being said. I simply was not supposed to comment or have a vote, obviously. So I had no idea what was going on behind my back and was made out to be a liar. And then Mr. Pena had been told repeatedly as well that where our concerns were. I'm trying to get a lease and keep that business running. And then we get threatened by the Freeport EDC to remove equipment that was ours and we paid for, and
which isn't right. And completely misled by Mr. Duncan. Somebody who portrayed to be a friend and an alliance trying to keep things going downtown, and that didn't happen. Me and my sister had 10 days to get out of that building while my husband's mother was on her deathbed. And I texted Jeff about giving us some extra time. That didn't happen. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't right what was done to us. He led us to believe that we were doing the right thing, but then I'm told differently. It was never brought up in executive session about whether we were supposed to pay rent or not, and that he advised us not to. So I have no faith in him either.
Thank you.
Just for the record, in the code of ethics that was adopted by council in 2019 and we adopted this year, it does require, if you recuse yourself for a direct issue, that you are supposed to leave the room.
I didn't understand that. Would you please restate that, or at least show me what you're referencing?
It's in the code of ethics that was adopted, I believe, and I'm pulling this from memory, but I believe there is a provision in that you are supposed to step out of the room when discussion is.
Well, I gotta have, on something of this magnitude, Mr. Kelty, I want to see that statement versus rely upon memory.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am. If Mr. Pearson will fill out your form. You don't have, Mario, would you take the mic over, please? All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to give a little history so all the people in the room know that Mr. Yancey lives on the corner next to the bridge on Front Street. Before Troy purchased that property, that was crack houses. People lived in those little apartments with no electricity or.
No, I apologize.
Okay.
I was looking at my watch, my stopwatch.
Oh.
We need to be specific to
Right.
this
We're
particular.
just coming from the anger. So basically, Pam lived down here.
You can't talk about that.
Oh, well, anyway, she's upset because of the subdivision, so that's why
Okay.
her anger.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Some people might not know that.
Ms. Oldham, did I see your hand raised?
Yes.
Councilman King, I don't know what your response was. But I'm gonna ask you just minutes.
Melanie Olden, 922 West Fifth. Again, I spoke in the beginning in my concerns about whether, I don't understand the role, I guess, of Mr. Duncan as EDC and city attorney. And like I said, I'm new to the EDC. And the first week I'm on there, I have a conversation with Mr. Duncan, and I don't know if it's just coming from him or from other EDC board members to throw out that, hey, I don't think we really need an EDC director, do we? And why don't we save that $100,000 and let's just develop the land off of Skinner Street? That's why I actually did 2 public information requests to try to understand the role of the city and the EDC attorney. Are they there where we, on a board or city council, you can ask him specific legal advice or questions, or is he supposed to strongly tell us what he thinks we should be doing as a board or a city council? And I think it's kind of getting blurred, and I think there needs to be some clarification about what is the role, of the city and the EDC attorney. And I could go into other details, but, I believe speaking on facts and what I know, but I and others, but I'm speaking for myself right now, have had these kind of concerns.
And Mayor, in the TML handbook, number 59 on page 26, the only exception is to city employees, not to independent contractors in closed session. In regard to closed session. for employees. It's right here, right?
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
When I talked to Tina. City attorney. As an officer of the city. Like an employee.
Yes, I'm looking at our code of ethics, Mr. Kelty, what I'm reading. I do not think it applies to the city attorney. He's not a board member, and he's not a councilman. I'm not sure if I'll explain that. All right, and Mr. Councilman Brimage, what were you talking about, sir?
I'm saying the TML handbook on page 56, where it refers to closed meetings to discuss personnel issues. It says it does not apply to independent contractors or advisory board or committee members.
In regards to their choice, or regards to council,
So you're
to
the
make
correct.
that determination?
You wanna read it?
Does this flip over?
So I think the proper measure at this time would be, there's a motion, council can make a motion and have a vote to decide if it's an open session or closed session. If there's a legal question as far as whether it should be an open session or a closed session, then, we need to get advice from another attorney. Because since it directly affects me, so I think that there could be a motion and vote, but if there's some question, about that before the motion and vote, then it should be, consult the outside attorney to give advice to the council on this matter. I could present reasons why it would qualify, but then.
Hold on one second, Chris. Hold on a second, sir. Is there any way to erase the red? Yes. You just go with it. Where's that next one? Yes.
Actually, I can't rest where I can read it.
All right.
Meeting closed.
Mr. Kelty, will you share what you explained to me?
Yeah, so this question had come up previously, and I contacted TML Legal on this particular issue. And in regard to the eligibility for discussion of the city attorney's discussion in council, if the city, if it's as an officer, he would be eligible, and as I shared in our charter, that that position is called out as an officer of the city. According to TML, it would be up to council whether or not they could legally have that discussion in executive session, but it would be up to city council.
So the decision is really, again, goes back to council.
Well, there's still one important question that needs to be answered. Stuff that was mentioned in executive at the last meeting, is it able to be brought out into public if we were to change this into a public discussion? That is my concern.
Sure. It will, just like number 10 did. Where things were discussed in executive session now for the public purview, when that agenda item was requested. I think it will potentially do the same as it's requested now. But we have to ask, and it's not to sound crazy, folks, but we have to get an opinion from the city attorney, unless, Mr. Duncan, you are uncomfortable rendering such a decision based upon the accusations, in which case we would have to discuss this with an outside city attorney to get a decision on this matter. Agreed or not agreed?
Agreed. I cannot give y'all legal advice about this question because it pertains to me specifically. Now, you should go to an outside attorney. I don't know if the consultation by Mr. Kelty, you talked to the TML and gave them an answer about that said that it's council's, the council can hear the matter in executive session, that's legal, but if y'all want further consultation and more in-depth consultation with the attorney, then that would be, y'all could certainly do that.
Question from the floor.
Excuse me?
Good question.
Yes, ma'am.
Who pays for outside legal advice?
Y'all do, I do, they do, I'm a taxpayer and a homeowner. Well, Mr. Kelty says TML is a bill at no cost. Whatever that's worth, but we pay that, you do, I do.
Part of the cost.
Although normally their advice comes, but they defer to the city attorney, so.
Well, based on the agenda item, can we talk about terminating the services?
I don't think that is actionable, Troy, Mr. Councilman Brimage, under the way it is posed. Once again, I think the way it's posed is inappropriate, and not very, allowed to be very responsive to. So.
We're killing the city by dragging this on week by week, and this is.
We have to follow the process. And unless I hear otherwise, I think the process says is we're gonna have to ask this specific question to TML. And maybe it'll be re-agended more appropriately. Maybe it won't. Unless I hear something else from council. Because as y'all told me many times before, I'm not an emperor, and I'm responsive to y'all as well. I'm putting it to y'all. Mr. Bacon?
I say we go ahead and get an outside agency. I mean, we spend money on all kinds of stuff that we don't agree on anyway. Let's go ahead and hire somebody. Add it on to my water bill.
You know what, you just made my mind up, we are gonna put it on your water bill.
Thank you.
I know, let me just say this, folks, and I know sometimes I make jokes when I probably shouldn't, but I try to do that to relieve tension. These are very, very, very serious, points that are out here, item number 10 and item number 11. And I've told you before, I think it was inappropriate for them to be brought on as written, because we're talking about people's lives now. Mr. Kelty has declared to y'all what he will do, and I think, but that doesn't reflect no less on Mr. Duncan to have the same rights and procedures and protections that either our charter, which is our constitution, or Texas statutes follow And so to make sure that we do this appropriately, it is my recommendation, gentlemen, that we have an outside attorney, that a TML attorney that doesn't cost us anything except for what we just mentioned earlier, to get our opinion on this and bring that to us. And unfortunately, it will be re-tendered on the next agenda, unless a special meeting is requested, which is allowed to do under the new agenda. Yes.
Can I speak when you get a chance?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sabrina Brimage, 24 Fisher. I know you might not can answer this question, but I do have a question. For the ones that do look at social media, Facebook, there was a post made by the City of Freeport attorney, Chris Duncan. And his post on social media was making assumptions. I'm not an attorney, so I'm hoping I'm using the right words, about one of your councilmen, which was my husband, Troy Brimage, stating different things that he felt was unethical or not right or done wrong, which is making my husband's not look good. And I want to know why a city attorney that works for all of y'all, including my husband, can be allowed to do that. To me, it's no different than one of your employees saying ugly things, untruthful, ugly things about you on social media and still working for you. Would you allow that to happen, Mayor?
Well, Facebook is the devil.
You're right.
And I don't know necessarily how to answer that, except, Mr. Duncan, did you make a Facebook post about a particular council person? I don't have Facebook. I don't see Facebook.
Yes, he did, I read it too.
He did.
Let him answer it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, ma'am.
Can you say that in the mic?
Wait one second.
The audience can
It's
hear
not
you,
on,
Mr. Duncan.
it's the convoluted response, it's an agenda issue, but thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your question and pointing that out. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get an answer from TML on this matter, and we will get a decision shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going into God Almighty. Councilman Penny, do you have any announcements, comments for work session?
Hey, can I make a motion to adjourn?
You certainly can make said motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. I will second that motion. Is there, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
And do I hear nay
Three.
from y'all? Who's the third?
I mean, I'd like to do the workshop, please.
Who had the third?
Kane.
I said aye.
Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now adjourned. Thank you very much for your patience, for your comments. We will be working to work on the trash agreement, and we'll proceed accordingly.
Oh, that's it. No executive session tonight, but still a lot of work to do. I definitely hope that we could get past this, and we will, but I think there's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of things, perceptions that we still got to clear out, so I do definitely.
Here is the stuff that we sent in regard to the open record agreement to all the properties on the river.
That's correct. There was a motion made and adjourned.
Going back to 2012, I think it is.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you so much. Wow. Got my open records request. Let's see what it is. So I had, I probably posted online, but it was on open records request on riverfront properties that were purchased. So he got a lot of like a list that he just gave out to me. So I don't know. There's a lot going on. A lighting plan went through. There was some mattresses that I put some lights on. The city had their recommendations. If there's anything that I can help anyone with, I will, give me a call, give me a text message, Facebook message. I'll be out there, just set up a date, time, and I'll go talk to you. There's always things going on. I know, what's his name? Mr. Matamoros made some comments, but I do think that the Attorney General or TML needs to make that response before we put in an open session, and according to Mr. Kelty and Mr. Duncan's approach. So I think we could have done better there. There's a lot of people that were, escorted or had to go outside. It's the way, it's the way the way that happens. Also, on sometimes it feels, to me, my opinion is that sometimes to find the truth, you gotta dig to find the truth here. There's a lot of perception, a lot of stories. So we're definitely working towards something. We're gonna get you guys the truth that y'all wanna, hear about Riverfront, or the city manager, attorney. So we're working towards that. So, anyways, that's pretty much it.
So I don't know.
Peace, everyone.
I don't have an exhibit A here.